It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy's here, Alex is here, Jason's here. Jason has the new iPad mini. We'll get his review. We'll take a look at the problems facing Vision Pro and the rumor that Apple's having an event next week. All that coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 944, recorded Tuesday, October 22nd, 2024. The taste of citrus, caffeine, and skateboards. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Apple news with the Apple Intelligentsia. They're all in the house today. Jason Snell from sixcolors.com. Good to see you, Jason.
Good to be here. I'm literally in my garage, so I am in the house in the
house in the back.
In the truest sense of the front, right in the front.
In the front. Yeah. Yeah. Modern houses, the garage seems to be a large portion of the overall frontage. Which
I wouldn't call my house modern. It's a 1950s, but
right.
But it's here and I'm here, and it's very nice to take this unused space and turn it for like more than a decade now into where I work. So
we can judge how long Jason has been in the garage by the state of the lava lamp, which is yet to start flowing. So.
I only recently turned it on, so it is not. Right. It is still solidified. Don't worry. As a tip to the viewer, yes. But when we get later in the show, the bubbles will be bubbling back there. Like an Easter egg.
That chuckling coming from Andy Anako, WGBH Boston. Great to see you, Andy. Glad they allowed you upstairs in the library today.
Great to be here. And also, if you happen to be running like a national or international grade set of data center security, you can use Jason's lava lamp as a random number generator.
Yes.
Joe, make sure that he's actually in the garage, because if it's one of those weeks where he's like at someone else's house and he's actually using a static backdrop, that's a field day for hackers.
The random is not so random.
But hey, free is free.
Yeah, it's very famous that
computers aren't very good.
Yeah. Cloudflare has a lava lamp wall for generating its random numbers, which is actually really quite intelligent.
Yeah.
I think that's
it sounds like a made-up thing that would be done in some sort of like Bond movie, where they say, "Oh yes, why all the lava? Oh well, we use these as random number generators to secure the encryption on the crown's holdings." Yes.
And everybody in the audience
I'll tell you. Everybody in the audience is like, "Oh God, yeah, no, you just wanted to have a wall that makes no sense." Oh wait, you actually got that from life? Okay,
I love that actually. That's really cool. Also with us, I don't know if he has a lava lamp wall, but I'm guessing he might. Because he does have an evil lair.
I had one of those nebula things, the ones you put your hands on, you touch, and the little sparks go toward.
Yeah, a Tesla. What do they call that? Tesla coil?
Plasma.
Where do you get those now that Brookstone is out of business?
Exactly. I got it from Brookstone.
Sharper Image, Brookstone, and now what? Yeah, I know.
Exactly.
I think AliExpress is probably the answer, unfortunately.
Yeah, but I just learned that if you put metal stuff on the globe itself, it looks like it could be dangerous. Like it's like, oh, it's cute, and it's cute when it's in glass and it's your skin, and then it can move a lot more electricity. So I'm sure that's probably why they don't sell them as widely anymore.
So Mark Gurman says it's next week, and Mark Gurman implies there might even be an event. He says creators are going to be invited to an LA event Wednesday of next week, which would be the 29th.
They were just trying to figure out where they
30th.
Probably called Justine and Marquez and just were like,
yeah, when can you come out?
When are you guys going to be home? Like, and they're like, oh, we'll be in LA.
To the coast. We'll get together, have a few laughs.
Can you scuba dive another day?
They did something similar.
Okay.
They did a creators event last year for their October event in New York. They did, remember, it's not really an event. They just played the video, but they had a video sort of like premiere with the creators, and then they had a hands-on area where they could shoot their videos with the new products. And it sounds like maybe they're doing some of that in LA. They may also do it in New York. I honestly don't know, but it's part of a bigger strategy. Obviously, he heard from somebody who got invited on Wednesday, and as he said on Twitter, this puts an outside bound on when they're going to announce it, right? Because it'll they'll be doing an event on Wednesday with creators, so they'll announce it by Wednesday, right? We don't know necessarily if it's Monday or Tuesday, but it's coming.
Yeah. Apple's inviting, he writes, media creators at different appointment times throughout the day on October 30th in my town, a little gratuitous, my town of LA. They seemingly aren't bringing a group together to watch a keynote video, so the announcement is online only, as I've been indicating.
So they've done it a few different ways in New York, so it'll be interesting to see. They do have an outpost in LA now, so this might be a new thing for them to try out.
Is this one of these like Batman offices, or is it an actual Apple office? Because
that's a good question. In LA, right? Because in New York, they own a stately Wayne mansion of their own, stately Wayne Manor in Tribeca. Yeah. I don't know about LA and where they're doing it, and if they've rented a place or if they're putting them at Apple's building in Santa Monica or whatever.
Some of them, a lot of the larger companies have these kind of hidden, like you're in a warehouse, you like open up a warehouse door and it's amazing. Microsoft has one. Microsoft has one like in the lower part of San Francisco. It's just gorgeous.
I don't know what Apple might be doing in LA, but they definitely have that in New York. They have it's just
2 years ago. I was just looking at Apple Insider. Apple started building a massive TV and movie production facility in Culver City.
Oh yeah. Yep.
So that's where I'd do it, right?
It could be. It depends on this. I mean, this is just briefings and stuff. And the fact that they're getting individual time slots, I think that's smart, right? There are two ways that they can do it. They can get everybody together, but the problem then is you've got a big gang of people together, and they all want to shoot B-roll, and they all want to shoot stand-ups, and they all want to build their video presentation. And so the other way you do it is you stagger them by time and give them a space, which is, if I were a YouTube creator, I would very much prefer that, to get my 30 minutes where I could shoot my video in a nice controlled space. And I know the last time I was in the Apple New York location, there was a floor that I didn't go to on the elevator, but the elevator stopped there. And it was very clearly a setup where creators could come and shoot some of their video stuff with the new products. So it's really smart. I think the question is, what's the rollout, and is there a video drop or just a bunch of press releases, which it might be. I'd be a little surprised if there weren't a hype video of some sort, because keep in mind, we're going to see the M4 Pro and the M4 Max probably, which they love to boast about their chips and their chip performance. But I mean, it's really interesting. There was a period of 5 or 10 years where it felt like every Apple event was predetermined. You knew exactly what they were going to do. And to the credit of the current regime, they're mixing it up. You can't really guess what Apple is up to. All you can do is listen to Mark Gurman, who will tell you exactly what they're up to.
So it's going to be a busy week, because Monday is when 18.1 comes out, right, for iOS. That's when the first dribbles of Apple Intelligence
Sounds like
emerging.
Yeah.
They released Final Candidate and also release notes. So that's pretty much a dead deal.
I'm actually installing the 18.1 beta now, because I'm not all that interested in the Apple Intelligence, but this is the debut of the hearing aid feature, which I'm very interested in. And we've started to see some reviews of it on The Verge and elsewhere.
Yeah, but it's by young people who have good hearing. So, Leo, I can't wait to hear what you think of it.
What?
Because hey, Sonny, what was that? And unfortunately, I have sad news to report. I actually got a hearing test the other week, and I can hear fine. So I'm not going to be a good tester of this thing. It's good news for me. It's bad news for the world. But you, Mr. Laporte, who have your speak up, Sonny. You have hearing aids and a prescription and all those things. So you're going to be able to actually tell us how it goes.
Yeah. Not only do I have moderate, not severe, but moderate hearing loss, I also wear hearing aids. I have for about 10 years, audiologist prescribed hearing aids. So I'll be able to, these are $7,000 for the pair. They're incredibly expensive. And I'll be able to compare them to the $250.
And I think the biggest thing is
AirPod.
what's the battery life on the $7,000 version?
It easily lasts all day. It's not,
Yeah.
these things, but they're really very different instruments. I mean, the AirPods are designed for listening to music, right? And so they're very different instruments. The AirPods do have a microphone on them, as of course hearing aids do. In fact, these Oticons are verging on the capabilities of the AirPods, because I can answer the phone, listen to the caller, and speak to the caller all through these devices. But listening to music on these is terrible.
Yeah, but
It's designed for the voice, not for the...
Right. And not only that, realize that they're making the AirPods in the millions, whereas they make hearing aids in the tens of thousands at most. Right. So there's economies of scale.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're price gouging somewhat, but
that too.
And insurance typically does not pay for it. Some do, but Medicare certainly doesn't, and my insurance doesn't. So it's out of pocket, which means a lot of people, maybe the majority of people who need hearing aids don't wear them. And there's a lot of evidence that not wearing a hearing aid can cause cognitive impairment. It certainly isolates you from the world. So this is maybe the most important health initiative from Apple ever.
Well, and
because I think getting people to use these, or at least there'll be a hearing test, right, on 18.1. The Chris Welch, who reviewed it on The Verge, said he's 40. He doesn't have hearing loss. So he's not that good.
Well done.
Well done. But he says
he mustn't not like any of the good bands, though.
Yeah. Well, that's it. I lost my hearing from rock and roll. I can blame rock and roll for that. The real question is, how long will it take before people think I'm not listening to them if I'm wearing AirPods? You know, with real hearing aids, it's very hard to see them. You have to look for them and know where they...
People will get over it, though, I think. You can explain yourself and say, I can hear you. I'm using these to hear. Yeah. Because
remember how we mocked people who wore AirPods at first? It looks so dopey to have that little dribble.
Well, and I've often used the AirPods specifically to communicate that I don't want to be talked to. And so I feel like this is going to ruin everything. Because sometimes the battery will run out and I still put them back in because I'm walking down the street.
This is going to ruin that for you. I don't have to talk to anyone.
I don't have to do anything else. So so this is going to kind of screw up, muddy the water, where we don't know what you're doing and why you're doing it. But I do think I think that there's a group of people, I have some family members that I'm clear that they need hearing aids. They will not wear them because of the personal, what they consider stigma of having them on. Exactly. And so being able to put an AirPod in and just have one of those ears in there or both and being able to hear everybody and it becoming normal that everyone's got these in their ears all the time, which I think is a little odd. But it is the other thing is that there's what Apple's really doing that I think is interesting is integrating all of these services. I'd kind of gone away from the AirPod Pros and I got them specifically because of the ear protection. I was just at a concert last week. I was at the Toad the Sprocket and Bare Naked Ladies concert. And, we sat kind of halfway back and I looked at it and I was like, I don't like the sound of the protection that I have. And it wasn't as loud as some other concerts I've been to. And so I didn't do it. But after the show, my ears hurt because my ears are kind of fragile, and I was like, I'm going to spend up to $300 on something. I'm going to make it go away. And when I saw that they're actually measuring these as protection, I was like, I'm going to try this and try to go to some shows with these on. It's 25 to 30 dB of reduction. And that's a pretty good set of, that's a lot of them don't promise much more than that. Maybe the most you get is maybe 40 dB. And
then you can't barely hear anything.
You can't hear the show. And so the thing is that I was like, why do I go to the concert if everything sounds like it's underwater?
Right.
And what this promises, and this is what I'm going to try to test, is the idea that it's reducing all that, but it's then passing you the sound in a relatively good way, so you can actually hear the concert just not as loud as it's being projected. And I think that if that's actually the case, so it's protecting you on one end, it's supporting you on the other end, and it's playing music and doing phone calls in the middle. And so it does a lot of, I think there's a lot of features that it's adding to it, and it does it at a pretty high quality for the price, especially. Apple seems expensive to everything except for hearing aids. So it's a really inexpensive choice. You could buy 3 sets of Apple AirPods and to cover you all day, and it still wouldn't dent the cost it was going to cost to have the hearing
Absolutely.
aids.
So Chris Welch does write on The Verge that he says, did you know there are people who have already been replacing earplugs with the AirPods Pro at concerts? Until this fall, Apple never endorsed such a use case or even mentioned it. The company knew that people were doing it, but kept quiet. Now, with 18.1 and the soon-to-be-released AirPods firmware update, the AirPods Pro 2 will be offering hearing protection at all times, across noise cancellation, transparency, and adaptive audio modes. Somebody in our chat, in our Discord chat, says, Flying Comic says, gun range hearing protection is usually 23 to 25 dB drop. So these, you wouldn't wear them to the gun range, but you absolutely could wear them at a concert. And I'm presuming hear the music quite well, right?
I have used them at a concert, and they work pretty well. I'm looking forward to trying them with this new feature that is expressly for that, but they already had a reduce loud sounds option that made it possible for you to listen in. I think I had it in transparency mode, and it's passing through whatever it
How did
can.
the music sound?
It sounded pretty good. I also have a pair of little in-ear earplugs that do a pretty good job of reducing the sound. So I compared them, and they're just different. But I wonder if software. I mean, obviously Apple knew that people were using them this way, but like it wasn't. They can't make that claim, right? It's dangerous to make that claim unless you can back it up. So it sounds like they can back it up now with some more express hearing protection. But certainly, what I would say is, if you have AirPods and you're at a concert, you should put them in. It's better
or
than
earplugs.
Nothing.
I always wear Automotics concert ear protection.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying is if you have no other ear protection and you have your earpods with you, you should put them in.
Especially if they're well sealed, right? Because that's key.
The Pro ones are going to be the best for that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. I've worn my, we have in-ear monitors. These are, an audiologist actually makes the mold, and you go and you get them made. A number of companies do these. And I wore them to a concert, Humphreys McGee concert. Humphreys McGee used to, they don't do it anymore, but they used to let you buy a transmitter that was plugged into the soundboard that you could then wear your headphones with. And that was the best concert I've ever been to, because the sound was fantastic. And you still feel the bass, because you're in the room, you still feel like it's live. You can even hear the crowd sort of in the background. It's pretty cool. Apple says, do not try to protect your ears with AirPods Pro over 110 dBA. And concerts can easily get above that. But I have my Apple Watch set to 90 dB and warning me. And most of the time, if it's over 90 dB, I will know, but the watch will tell you. I think this is great. Apple's really getting into this. And, with us boomers, with this growing market of old folks, this is a very good market for Apple to be in.
Well, and I think it's good on both ends. Like if these work, I'm going to take them to a couple concerts, including my daughter's concert soon. And if these work, you get into this mode of like, well, I'm taking my kids to concerts. I'm probably going to buy them a pair of these to protect their ears early on. Something that I should have done. And I think sometimes it's hard to get someone to put stuff in their ears, but if it's something that you're wearing to listen to stuff anyway, if a lot of people are using it as this, for this product, and it produces a high quality transfer of audio, I could definitely see a lot of people using it for this purpose.
Jammer B saying, yeah, I took you to that concert. Thank you, Jammer B. He's in the chat room. They have a sound test. I haven't tried it yet. I am downloading the 18.1 public beta now, so I can try it, but I'll have it for next week. But they do a sound test. There are programs like Mimi that you can run on your iPhone that will do a sound test very similar to the actual audiologist's test. The curve it generates looks very much like the curve I get from my audiologist.
Absolutely.
It shows where your normal is, which is 0 dB, and where you're below.
Also, I believe you can scan in your audiologist results and use those if you want to.
I will actually do that because that's how my hearing aids are set. So for best comparison, I'd like to get the AirPods. I don't think it'll be better or worse. I think it'll be different. But if it gets people who don't want to spend $7,000 or don't want the stigma of hearing aids to wear.
Yeah,
I mean,
100%.
It's also, by the way, I don't mind wearing AirPods all the time because I can listen to music. And then,
exactly.
What's wrong with that? It's not
even when they're not hearing aids, they're AirPods. So there's a win.
There's also the issue of tinnitus reduction. There's some evidence that wearing, that's the ringing in the ears that a large percentage of Americans.
You're never alone. That's what I always say. If someone asks me how I feel about it, I say I'm never alone. It's never that quiet.
Yeah, there's always aliens humming.
There's a 9K hum all the time. Yep.
So there's some evidence that having hearing aids will help in that. These Oticons actually have a tinnitus mode, a masking mode, and I have pink noise playing at a very low level, which actually helps amazingly when I wear these. But presumably you could do the same thing with the AirPods. There are plenty of places to go to get, masking sounds that you could presumably play at the same time. So that's interesting too. Anyway, I'm very happy to see them do this. I will give you my report as soon as I can test it. I usually don't like to test beta stuff, but the beta is basically the final at this point, I would imagine. So that's coming Monday. So we got possibly Mac Minis coming next Wednesday. What else are we going to see? HomePods? Anything else?
No, I think it's going to be a Mac event or product drop. It's Mac Mini, which will be the new smaller Mini. It'll be MacBook Pro M4.
Okay.
And the rumor is, the report from Gurman is that probably it's an M4 iMac, because remember, they're trying to get all of the old M3 Macs off onto M4, the new, better second generation 3-nanometer process.
In front of a very expensive MacBook Pro M3 that I bought, thinking I was future-proofing myself.
Yeah,
I got the Max.
You are.
Now I'm thinking.
No, I mean, this is the thing. First off, M4, I mean, a lot of the M4 benefits are smaller because part of it is just recalibrating from the first 3-nanometer process to the second. I'm sure there will be benefits, but I got to be honest, Leo, I've been talking to people who have M1s, and they're like, oh, I'm going to have to go up to M4 from M1. I'm like, I don't know. What do you do? Because for most people, even an M1, if you're on an Apple Silicon Mac, I think you're fine. I have an M1 Max Mac Studio, and like maybe I'll replace it at some point, but like it doesn't feel slow. It doesn't feel limited. It's incredibly capable, and that's that first generation. So if you've got an M3, I think you got it made. I think that this is for sweeping up the last people on Intel, and also it's the people who maybe got a base M1 and they want to go up to something higher. I think those are the kind of people who really, really, really need an M4, because all the Apple Silicon stuff is great.
I mean, one of the biggest changes you'll have is opportunity for increased I/O. I'm using an M1 MacBook, like one of the originals, like as my daily driver. I agree with you, Jason. It's like I've never been in a situation where I feel like, oh damn, I'm being held back by the limitations of my 3 or 4 year old MacBook. And I'm using like Adobe Photoshop in beta. I'm using like generative AI that's being hosted on the device itself. But the things that I miss is the fact that I only have 2 ports and I can only have like one external display.
Right.
So what excites me about getting a Mac Mini is having a real good like desktop warrior type of mode, not necessarily being able to run apps I wouldn't have been able to run before.
Yeah, I think that it's going to be the physical hardware changes that motivate a lot of updates. So like that's why I got an M2 MacBook Air, is that I really like that new design that they did in the M2 generation. But like I've got an M3 review unit here of the MacBook Air that I got to send back to Apple this month, and like I've used it some, but like my M2 is fine. Like it doesn't make me weep that I have to send it back because I only have an M2. Yeah. It's all good. But it's a gain of ports, change in look, gain in functionality that's very specific to you. That's the kind of stuff that can make a difference and make you.
Will there be a big design change?
No, this is going to look exactly like the existing MacBook Pros. I would be surprised if there are any material differences to it. That's why that leak, the people who had them in Russia. I think that's why, is that they're using the same boxes and they look the same. And I mean, they're Apple updates the chips way more often than they update the physical design. So I don't think there'll be any major changes on the outside.
I mean, I think the big design change we're all waiting for is to see what happens with the Mac Mini. Yeah. And is the Mac Mini really going to be small? And a lot of us are super excited about that. But
is small enough of a improvement to make you want to upgrade?
It's going to be faster. I mean, I'm not looking at upgrading necessarily, but I think that, because I have M1, mine are mostly just M1 8 gig Mac Minis. I have an M1 Studio that's got, 64 gigs or whatever in it. But again, I don't feel like for what I'm asking them to do, they're doing it perfectly, and they don't need to have any, and I think that that's the issue, is that for 95% of the population, I don't think they're going to see any difference in their day-to-day tasks between an M1 and an M4. But if you're looking to buy new ones, I potentially have to buy a bunch of Mac Minis. And so the idea that we are definitely waiting to see what happens here for that. If you're going to buy 10 or more of these, that makes a difference. And it does make a difference when you think about server farms, because, like a smaller Mac Mini means that you can, the density can be much higher inside of, and there's some people that are, Mac Stadium, Amazon, others are doing these, and that density makes a big difference. And so anyway, so I think that's the, and if nothing's been rumored, but if for some reason the size also corresponds to a change in price, I mean, Apple will clean that entire market out. And they have in the past gone, hey, you know what, we're going to reach down and compete with everyone to make sure that there's no room. They've done that with the AirPods before, the iPods before. And so, a smaller Mac Mini that came in at $399 or $299. I'm not saying it's going to happen because there's been no rumors that that's going to happen. But if that happened, it would be devastating to that market. For Apple to have products that were able to do that, and owning the chip and being able to build more efficient systems and so on and so forth does not put it out of the reach of Apple being able to reach down from a price perspective and having a base unit that competes heavily with the B-Links and the Melees and all the other things that are living down there, because it'd be a far superior product for the same price.
Yeah. Also, a physical redesign gives them an opportunity to switch to less expensive, more efficient manufacturing, or even the idea of making it smaller just so they can fit more product into each master case and more master cases into each shipping container, which also pays off in the long run. And also, I mean, the design people, the design studio at Apple, you got to give them a chance to have some fun. Don't just put them in the same rounded square. Let them have a little bit of fun.
Make them triangles.
Big triangles. There you go. The pyramids. The pyramids are still around after 5,000 years. You want to talk about sustainability? Look to the pyramid.
I have a. This is the development kit for the Qualcomm Snapdragon, which does look like a Mac Mini, doesn't it? It's very similar in many respects, although it's black plastic, not aluminum. And for reasons no one is quite sure of, they only sent out 200 of these. I was very lucky. I was one of the 200. And now they've canceled it, and they're refunding all our money. I think I can keep it without having to send it back. But that's how really the form factor really spread. I mean, this could be a Mac Mini almost, except for a number of
Once you take away the need for internal expandability, once you also take away the need for really, really aggressive CPU cooling, a lot of design opportunities really open up. And I think that's it's nice to see this being reflected in the industrial design. I mean, we've talked before about how cool would it be to have an Apple TV sized, really inexpensive desktop Mac. I don't know if that's a great business decision for Apple to do. I'd be really interested in it, but that's now such things are no longer just speculation. Something that they could do it if they wanted to. They could just essentially take the MacBook Air main board, such as it is, maybe bend it a little bit and make it fit into that same space.
Yeah. All right, let's take a little pause. That's, as far as we know, that's the docket. Well, there's one big thing coming up a week from tomorrow, or I guess a week from Thursday, which is Apple's quarterly results.
Yeah.
Halloween.
I don't think it's any accident that they gave a huge interview to Tim Cook to the Wall Street Journal, was it? And he's been appearing. There's been a lot of stuff appearing to sort of prepare the ground for all of the sort of huge. When you hear our results, please listen to it within the context of the greater story that we're trying to tell here.
Let's take a break, and then when we come back, we will talk about that, because he says, "Oh no, don't worry. Our huge bets, all that money we're spending, and is going to pay off. So don't worry, Wall Street." We'll talk about that in just a moment. You're watching MacBreak Weekly with Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell. Our show today brought to you by 1Password. There's an old friend, right? But with a new product that I think is very timely. It's really for the world we live in today. They call it 1Password Extended Access Management. Let me ask you it's a rhetorical question, because I know the answer. Do your end users, let me ask you, if you're running a business, an IT shop, do your end users always work on company-owned devices, right? They never bring their own. And they always use IT-approved apps. They never install anything else, right? Wrong. We know the answer, right? So how do you keep your company's data safe when it's sitting on all those unmanaged devices, all those unknown apps? Well, 1Password has a way. They have an answer. It's called Extended Access Management. 1Password Extended Access Management helps you secure every sign-in for every app on every device because it solves problems traditional IAM, password managers, and MDM can't touch. It's easy to do this, understand what this does. If you imagine your company's security like the quadrangle of a college campus. Nice brick paths leading between the buildings. Those are the company-owned devices, the IT-approved apps, the managed employee identities. But then there's also, on every quadrangle, the kind of the dirt paths that people actually use, the shortcuts worn through the grass, the straightest line between building A and B. Those in your business are the unmanaged devices, the shadow IT apps, the non-employee identities like contractors on your network. The problem is most security tools just assume, oh no, it's all happy brick paths. But a lot of security problems take place on those dirt paths, on the shortcuts. 1Password Extended Access Management is the first security solution that actually brings all these unmanaged devices, these apps, these identities under your control. It ensures that every user credential is strong and protected, that every device is known and healthy, and every app is visible. It's security for the way we work today. Now available for companies with Okta and Microsoft Entra. It's in beta right now for Google Workspace customers. So if you use those technologies, you're ready for 1Password Extended Access Management. Check it out at 1password.com/MacBreak. That's the number 1, PASSWORD, 1password.com/MacBreak. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly, and we thank you for supporting us by going to that address, because then they know you saw it here. 1password.com/MacBreak. Tim Cook, the Wall Street Journal magazine this weekend. The CEO of the world's most valuable company, led 2 of the biggest product launches of his tenure this year and believes they will be as life-changing for the rest of us as they are for him, even if they currently make $0. The big bets will pay off, Tim says. It will. So it's a profile. So it starts. The first thing Tim Cook does when he wakes up is check his iPhone. It's sitting atop his nightstand in silent mode, where the CEO of Apple, the most valuable company in the history of the world, reaches for his device and starts triaging his inbox. He says, every day, every product, including the Vision Pro, which is fair. I mean, you're the CEO of a company that makes a reasonable number of products. You can use every product in one day: desktops, laptops, tablets, headphones, watches, streaming TV, streaming music, streaming movies.
To the extent that any Apple product can be named dog food, he eats his own dog food. Good for him.
Yeah. Do you think he watches all the Apple TV Plus movies, though? I don't know.
I don't know about that.
Napoleon alone would eat up pretty much the entire day. Ain't nobody got time for that. So this is an interesting. Now they said the interview was this summer, so it's not brand new, but they were obviously planning to have this out. They probably made a deal with the Journal to have this out the week before.
Yeah,
quarterly
and
results.
they did have like really, really good access. It wasn't like show up at this hotel suite and for 45 minutes and we will give you like 40 minutes.
No, he was on campus. Yeah.
I mean, it ends with like the reporters scheduling an email. Thank you very much. Scheduling an email to Tim Cook with like some wrap up questions at 5 a.m. and then getting a response like 24 minutes later. So.
Yeah,
it's very flattering. It was very interesting. I mean, obviously, it's not here to like tear the roof off of all of the skeletons in Apple's closets, and yes, it was very positive. It was just so very quotable. Like I actually have like a sticky note with all these things that would be like could be T-shirt slogans on the Apple campus. Every product, every day. Not the first, but the best. Tomorrow is better than today. We learned that he likes Diet Mountain Dew.
Okay, just like JD Vance.
But it's not available on the campus.
Yeah.
And I haven't had a Mountain Dew in a long time. But
you in honor of Tim Cook, you're drinking Mountain Dew.
Raise a glass of
Not bad.
Mountain Dew.
Be careful. Be careful of that. What is that? Is that really Mountain Dew?
It is.
This is
What?
I thought they were going back to the Mountain Dew, not MTN. I think that there was a big. If you might have an older can.
Well, branding
Just wanna
debate.
let you know
Are you
that-
both doing the Dew?
MTN Dew.
Do you normally do the Dew?
I
never
do.
No, this is the first time I've done the Dew in quite
do
a
the Dew.
day. But
Diet Mountain Dew is also my favorite soda, so I'm right there with Tim Cook. Although what I do is I make sure that I have it around me, whereas Apple apparently doesn't stock it, and he laments that.
Ship it in.
He should talk to somebody who is in a position of authority at Apple to get him Diet Mountain Dew.
I think
Apparently, he does.
that's the sort of abuse of authority that I can absolutely appreciate. Not, hey, we're going to do things just because I want to. Hey, I really like Dr. Pepper. Could you, like, even if you have to just buy it at Costco and bring it in, could you have Dr. Pepper at the
have his assistant have a little mini fridge outside. It's okay.
Well, Apple, he says Apple doesn't stock his favorite soda. What it doesn't say is there's probably more than a mini fridge full of Diet Mountain Dew in his office,
I think so.
right?
I think so. But this is very Tim Cook, right? Like I just get the sense some of the details in here. It's very much like, oh, I don't want to cause trouble. I don't want to. I don't want to be all. You know.
They don't want to put Mountain. Honestly, the thing is a health hazard. That's why they don't carry it in the Apple Cafe. Come on, that thing is nuclear. What does it taste like?
Not true.
It's citrus something. It's like the beautiful taste of citrus and caffeine and skateboards.
It's definitely one of those drinks where I can say it tastes like Mountain Dew.
Right?
You know?
We often
There's a lot
said
of-
it looked exactly like what we thought of Mountain Dew, which is when you live in the country, it was related to deer. And so
What do you mean, deer pee? What do you mean?
yeah, we used to always say
I think
that
the canonical Mountain Dew is
we always thought
moonshine.
that deer
but-
pee was
right.
was
I
a
think
lot.
the can used to have
That's
like
where the
actual
name came
like
from.
hillbillies
Right.
with
Yeah.
shotguns went back when that was
Moonshine.
inappropriate. Yeah.
I don't know if all hillbillies are limited to shotguns.
Cohen asked, I asked if he ever thinks about what his childhood in Alabama would have been like if it had been filled with Apple products.
That's a weird one.
Just
It would have
sit back,
opened an
with our feet up
emerging
on the
world
Cracker
with
Barrel,
answers to
doing
his-
some whittling. Yeah.
Yeah. Would he have been the same guy if he had been glued to his phone? I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe he would have just been happy with what he had, and he would never become the ambitious CEO of the most valuable company in the history of the world, according to the Wall Street Journal. I don't think that's actually true, by the way. But
yeah, well, they keep swapping with Microsoft and
no, but I mean, historically,
yeah.
I think that they say the British East India Company was much more valuable.
But they're a bit more controversial than Apple.
Yes,
Shall
didn't
we say.
involve slaves. Let's put it that way.
Exactly.
So what else have we learned from this? Basically, hagiography, right?
Yeah.
My favorite thing is is again how basic Tim Cook can be. That I think is just wonderful. Is the question was, what do you name your group chats?
Oh, yes.
And his response was, what? Name them? I've never done such a thing. But
I had no idea.
I shall consider it. And then he comes back to the writer later and he says, oh, I did what you asked. I named one of my group chats. Oh, really, Tim? What group chat was it? Well, it's a group chat I have with my old college roommates. Oh, what's it called? Roommates.
Not War
Hey,
Eagle.
buddy.
It should at least
Tim,
be War Eagle.
I know, right, Tim, buddy? But this is the guy who on his financial call with analysts every quarter, the CEO of one of the largest companies in the world, every time he speaks, he's like, yeah, this is Tim. Yeah, we know it's you, Tim. We know, we can recognize, but he's like, he's just going to do it. He's very unassuming in that way. I found that actually kind of heartwarming because that it fits perfectly with my vision of who that guy is.
Exactly.
I did it. Roommates.
And I bet that part of the reason why he did it was not because he was excited about the idea, but he realized, that's something I've never tried. What if there's a huge defect in this that I was unaware of? And he had to try just to see if even if the user experience was up to snuff.
And I think it is something that helps Apple make some of those decisions that it makes, which is that it is their executives are they're geeky. I mean, they obviously know the technology, but they're not obsessed with it. Like they don't feel like they need to know every crevice of every, and I think that definitely drives some of the decisions of like, well, are people really going to use this? And I think they look at it like he had never thought of naming group chats. I don't know how to name group chats. I see other people do it to my chats.
Thanks, by the way, to Alex Howard in our Discord chat who has sent us this PubMed article, the caffeine content of prepackaged national brand and private label carbonated beverages, you might note that actually Diet Mountain Dew has more caffeine than regular Mountain Dew. Woo-hoo. And considerably more caffeine than any other product on the market.
That's why we drink it.
So now
even Mountain Lightning has less.
Now we see why he's awake at 5:35, obsessively checking his email.
I got Mountain Dew in me. Oh boy! Wow. Yeah. Actually, there is a something called IGA Cola. I don't know where you get that. That's the lowest. To Vault Zero, which has the highest. Vault Zero is even 50% more than.
That's like a Jolt. That must be the successor to Jolt Cola.
I did drink Jolt. I like Jolt. It was all the caffeine and twice the sugar, or it was twice the sugar and
all the sugar and twice the caffeine.
That was so that's shotgun material. I have to say that one of the changes I made this year in life was to try to get rid of recreational caffeine in my life, and suddenly, wow! Now that I'm no longer like having 2 or 3 glasses of like Diet Dr. Pepper a day, I'm actually falling asleep more or less when I intend to. Go figure.
Yeah, it does affect my sleep too. I can't stop drinking.
Maybe it's just my age, or maybe it's just.
And in fact, my daily espresso has more caffeine than your Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I mean, a 16-ounce coffee is 320 milligrams versus 55. Yeah. So it's still, and
I use the Diet Mountain Dew to come down off of the tea that I have in the morning. What are you talking about? Tapering. I'm tapering, people.
Well done.
Exactly.
There's a lot. Again, it's very readable, very good. It kind of underscores what we think or what we like to think about Tim Cook. I don't know whether there was a thread that was kind of running through it. I don't know if it was necessarily intentional. I don't know if it was suggested or implied by Apple press relations marketing, but there was a lot of, again, remember that this is like just a few days before the analyst call, and this is just a week before Apple Intelligence makes its first debut. A running theme was we don't always absolutely knock it out of the park for the first time, but number one, again, tomorrow is better than today. We're not always the first. Our goal is not to be the first, but to be the best. They have a quote from Craig Federighi. We'd argue that the innovation isn't having that idea. The innovation was being able to craft the right product that you could deliver in a great way at the time. It doesn't occur overnight. None of these, this was Tim Cook. None of these things, referring to all the successes they've had, occurred overnight. None of them did. So I don't know if they're explicitly setting up. Look, if you're comparing Apple Intelligence next week to Claude or to Gemini and saying, wow, it barely does anything, you're right. That's because this is the first thing we're doing. We're not just going to withdraw it after one release, like a certain development platform that Leo has. We're in this for the long haul. We'll get there eventually, and when we get there, we'll make sure that we're not just putting features out there. We're creating an ensemble of AI features that make the iPhone so much better and so much more useful that you won't know or care that it's AI. He was asked. He was fed a sort of a softball question of, do you think that AI features are going to make the iPhone negligibly different, a little different, or much more different? And he answered, profoundly different. So
he says, I think we'll look back and Apple Intelligence will be one of those air pockets, which is a really weird analogy, that happen to get you on a different technology curve. To put it another way, he believes that what's happening to him will happen for everyone. Oh, that's exciting. I'd like to be the CEO of the world's richest company. For some, it will happen very soon. For others, it will happen later. But it will happen, he says. It will happen for all of us. I think he's talking about AI. I don't know what he's talking about.
Yes.
But
or he's quoting yes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, there is a lot to be interested in this guy who is very self-effacing and yet runs this incredibly successful company, and apparently, and to all appearances, runs it very, very well.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't think there's a lot of revelations in here about why he's so successful. Do you?
No, not at all. Again, the Mountain Dew quote is probably the most. Wow, I didn't know. I didn't even figure him for. I figured him as a flavored water sort of guy, as opposed to national brand whatever.
Yeah, but you know what it is, Andy. It's like, my favorite soda is Diet Mountain Dew, and I have one every Tuesday.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, Lisa's that way. She likes Diet Coke, but she doesn't drink it hardly ever, and I know she does because I can hear the belching.
There was
going there.
There was a fun line that I can't figure out. Like maybe you guys will have like an opinion on this. I don't know whether this was Tim trying too hard or whether he was just answering a simple question directly. But when he was asked about the Vision Pro and, well, what do you use the Vision Pro for? He said, "Oh, I love like laying down on my sofa and watching TV like on the ceiling of my place." And he said that it was made much more sense or much more relaxing than having to sit up on an old-fashioned old couch and watch it on a TV screen. And I'm like, wow, the whole definition of if you're looking for something easier than sitting on a couch, maybe you've got the wrong couch, sir.
Get a better couch. Yeah, actually, I lie down on my couch and watch TV, and it's just similar. It's very similar.
This wonderful turning your head technology that saves you $3,500.
I also get the feeling, but I get the feeling with most CEOs that there's a PR person sitting right there that may occasionally bend over, lean into, and whisper into his ear.
For sure.
All of this stuff is so carefully cultivated. It's one of the reasons I don't make any effort to interview CEOs. There's only a few who are dangerous enough to be interesting, right?
It can be fun. I mean, I don't interview CEOs that often. I got some time with Jeff Bezos. I got some time with the CEO of ASUS. Oftentimes, it's a way to sort of find the sort of question that will slip underneath the radar and get down into the ventilation shaft of the Death Star. And actually, when I was interviewing the CEO of ASUS, one of the questions after getting the technical stuff out of the way was like, well, what did you use to create? Like as a kid, did you used to make stuff? And he suddenly, like, you could see that he like clicked off of like CEO, giving it interview mode, and started talking about, oh, well, yeah, I used to make these models. These are like, oh my great. So and you can learn something about the person. Again, the shields are going to be up 100%, and you're not going to get. There are very few people that. Very few outlets that are so important to a company like Apple where they're going to have to get the interview at some point, and they don't have to risk asking the question of, wow, that was a pretty big failure that you had with this product and you disappointed a lot of people. What are you doing to address that? So you're absolutely right about that.
Yeah, it's they're going to tell you exactly what they want to tell you, and that's going to be what they go in there for. And if the goal is humanize Tim Cook a little bit, then they'll do that too. But I was thinking about this in all of our conversations we've had about like the Meta Orion prototype that they showed and how Apple maybe has had that, also came to the same conclusions that Meta did, but they didn't tell anybody. And the question of like, well, which is better? I was thinking about this interview while I was reading and thinking, this is where you have a planned, and it could happen on the analyst call next week, who knows? But it's in a situation like this where you just have Tim Cook say, when asked about the Meta Orion, say, "Oh, we have a prototype very similar to that we looked at," and it solves the whole like, why does Apple not pre-announce or show prototypes? Is you can solve that problem with a choice CEO quote. Well, that says that you've got to, if you want to do that disclosure. Yeah. And that's a lot of times these whole articles, not from the journalist perspective, they just want the access to try to tell an interesting story. But from the other side of it, they're like, what are we trying to get across here? And there's a little tidbit we want to drop. And I feel that on the analyst calls too, that like they kind of light up when you ask the right question. That lets them say the thing that they just want to get out there in a way that's not a press release. And it's a semi, it's like a quasi-official pronouncement, but it's nothing more than that, but it allows them to sort of seed that thought out into the coverage, and it's all calculated.
And you can also do things like say, well, we saw it, but it was going to cost a lot of money to make them, and the compromises that are required to get it down to a reasonable price, even what we would consider reasonable, below the 3,500 or whatever, would require, and you can list off what the hard things are on a headset like that, would require lower resolution cameras, lower resolution displays, battery limitations. Like he can just list off all the problems that Meta's going to have. And what that does is it seeds this like doubt into the press. So every time Meta talks about it, everyone's all thinking about, well, what about that? And the first thing they look for is when they put the new glasses on, is the thing that Apple said will be hard to do. And the only thing you have to be careful of is not saying it's hard to do and then try to do it yourself and have to have those compromises. Then you're screwed.
Yeah, and there was like I think this might have been the first time that I've seen Tim Cook or anybody that's senior at Apple explicitly say, "Oh, well, the Vision Pro is for early adopters, so we weren't really expecting like big sales." I think they were happy to be quiet about that expectation. I'm sure that was what they were expecting, but they were very sure to be very quiet about that before they found out maybe there is going to be an explosion of really cool, like the third-party apps that use the hardware. And I think just as it happens, this week or the week before, that an analyst group figured that there's in September there were only 2 or 10 like specific Vision Pro apps released to the App Store, meaning that they are not gaining any ground with developers whatsoever. So this is why it's a good idea to start to put out the explanation that, look, again, we feel as though we're at the one end of a runway. We're not in the air yet, but then we weren't necessarily planning on being in the air yet, which is completely reasonable. But it does, like, if after the debacle of Project Titan, of the Apple car, which went so far into development. This wasn't like something that they were playing with. There was we heard a few weeks ago that they actually were co-developing a new style of electric e-vehicle battery with a Chinese battery manufacturer that had never been done before. That's how far along they were in this. They have to be able to explain, well, please don't frame the Vision Pro in terms of projects that we have canceled. See it in terms of things like the iPod, which in itself eventually was very successful once we got it launched properly, but also it laid the ground for products that came way after the iPod, products that were able to obsolete the iPod in time. So it's a very smart way to just manage the story.
Although you could probably say the reason the iPod became successful is they put it on Windows, but that's another. Again, initially,
really there's some things they didn't. Yeah, the things that were explained very clever, very carefully after the market said, "Yeah, wow, what a great toy for Mac people." Meanwhile, 82% of the desktops in America say, "That's nice. I think we'll buy
wish
something
I could
else."
do that. Yeah. Ben Cohen ends his. It's a puff piece, let's face it, but it's, interesting to read. It's not exactly challenging in any way, but I guess, you don't get to Tim Cook with challenging questions. Yeah. But he ends it with a koan, which I don't really understand, which is, because if you believe that tomorrow is better than today, that also means today is going to be better than yesterday. I don't know what that has to do with anything.
If you still have access to AI, I want you to put that in, give it that phrase and ask for an inspirational poster, because I bet there's going to be seagulls and sunsets.
Maybe it is. Maybe Cohen is actually slightly.
What was it? Where was it?
Because if you believe that tomorrow is better than today, that also means today is going to be better than yesterday. And maybe Ben Cohen is sly and actually saw that on a poster in Tim's office or something, because it's completely non sequitur. It's before it. He says, "Oh, I sent him an email and he responded in half an hour. The reply was friendly, professional, and concise, but it wasn't written by Apple Intelligence. He typed it out himself." And then Tim Cook got on with his day. And then, because if you believe tomorrow's better than today, also, I guess, is that Tim Cook's philosophy? I don't know. I don't know why it was in the article.
Yeah. Again, it fits the tone of the piece.
I guess it does. Yeah.
Again, realize
it's hard to end an article like this, isn't it? Except, then Tim Cook got up and walked off into the sunset. I mean, I don't know exactly.
Well, you can see when I was reading it, I was seeing the structure of the piece where he started off with, "This is how Tim Cook starts his day. He gets up and you ended with then at that point he whatever."
Yeah, it's well written. I'm not saying it's not.
I wouldn't say it was hagiography, but it was like you could definitely feel the guardrails. Like this was bowling with the bumpers, like in the gutters, saying you are not going to go too far this way or this way. This is the expectation.
And any well-trained politician or CEO,
exactly.
They're at a whole different level of doing this, and the care that they take and how they answer things to what was said before makes them somewhat opaque. I think that he and, as you go into those C-level folks, a lot of them are very careful about what they say and how they say it. The only ones that I think often vary are the ones that were the founders. They kind of feel like they can do whatever they want,
right?
And then those are the ones that but the ones that come up through the ranks, by the time they get there, they tend to be pretty sleek.
Yeah.
Very aerodynamic.
If I had the ability through a even not simply careless expression, but a not completely 100% thought out and calculated expression caused the valuation of a $2 trillion company to go down 2 or 3 points.
Exactly.
I would be that cautious too.
Exactly. And what's amazing though is that when they get to that level, how they can sound just totally fluid, and they're not telling you anything.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not saying anything at all.
But still, but still, like the times that like a lot of us have been, and Jason might have some thoughts on this too. It's like every time I've done an interview with anybody, whether it's like an actor on stage at Comic-Con or an executive or in the rare cases a CEO, I'm always sensing that there is the lane that they are trained to be on, and they know the danger of leaving that lane. But if you give them an opening that is, wow, this is something I wasn't expecting, but it's a completely safe thing for me to talk about, and finally I can actually pretend that this is a normal conversation as opposed to navigate this conversation tree that I've been programmed to go into. Like I was interviewing Wallace Shawn and absolutely threw him for a loop, because when the format that I'd chosen was, obviously everybody was there to ask him about the Princess Bride and stuff like that, like a couple of thousand people, whatever, in the room. I'll ask the first question and have like the first back and forth while people get like.
See, I would have asked him about my dinner with Andre. That would have been my.
I asked him the first question about Uncle Vanya, which was one of my saying that it was one of the most incredible openings of a movie I've ever seen. If you've never seen it, it is like the famous Chekhov play, Uncle Vanya. But it's like he and just Louis Malle and a couple of friends, they're just like hanging out in the New Amsterdam Theater as it's being renovated before it becomes the Disney Theater. And they just like are walking in off the street, having a conversation, like a My Dinner with Andre conversation. And there's a moment where they're suddenly doing Uncle Vanya. And it's so hard to figure out what moment are they in character, because they just like have a cup of coffee and they're walking around and they take a seat and they're sitting talking at this table that's on the stage. And suddenly there's a line that is the first line of Uncle Vanya. And so we actually got a conversation going, and then someone asked, "Hey, could you say inconceivable?"
Inconceivable.
So yeah, I mean, you can find, if you can find that lane where it's like, oh, thank God, it's not something, they're not asking something that's personal, not asking something dangerous, but it's something that I feel like I can talk about freely. It can happen.
I think it's more true with creatives than it is with CEOs. In any event, now we know just a little bit more about Mr. Cook, whose company is currently valued at $3.58 trillion.
It's amazing how long it took to get to $1 trillion, and how quickly it just keeps going. Every trillion after that just gets added on.
Compound interest, baby.
Wow.
I didn't realize until I saw the picture in the Wall Street Journal. He's even wearing Nike glasses. I knew he wore Nikes because he's on the board. He's on the
part
Nike
of the
board.
story. He's on the Nike board.
The Business Insider had another story that I don't think it was done necessarily with the involvement of Apple, because it didn't seem to have direct quotes, but it was talking about how, like, when the CEO left in 2016, that there's been some shakiness with the new like top leadership, and it's not as though Tim has been like co-running Nike as a board member, but that he's been very involved. He's been very, very helpful. He's been like a steadying hand on this, that, and the other. And like, so that's why I read that. So I'm like, oh my God, he's even wearing Nike glasses. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's kind of remarkable that he could do that and run Apple, to be honest.
I know, and he's been doing it since 2006, since before he was CEO.
Before the iPhone.
So it's not as though he like this. Oh, gee, I was already here, but I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit because I don't have enough time. I mean, you're suspicious of certain CEOs who have seemingly plenty of free time, even if they're running 3 big companies. I feel as though Tim Cook, he's not running Nike. He's just a board member, but he's one of these high bandwidth guys.
Is that he chose that, or certainly had a big impact on who the next CEO of Nike would be. Elliot Hill, who just came out of retirement to be the new CEO, has been struggling. So apparently, I mean, this Bloomberg story, again, I don't know how Gurman's involved, but I don't know how well sourced it is.
Gurman was involved in that. The writer said it was approaching Apple saying, "Hi, I'm not Gurman. I don't know Gurman. I've never met Gurman." My first piece for Business Insider.
All right, let's take a little pause that refreshes. We can do our Vision Pro segment. We have some Vision Pro stories. Apple is celebrating a big anniversary. We'll talk about that and a lot more. You're watching MacBreak Weekly with Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell. Our show today brought to you by those great people at ThreatLocker. Now, this is an interesting, we don't do a lot of security. Maybe we do, advertisers on MacBreak Weekly, but these days, everybody, including shops with Macs, has to pay attention to what's going on. Between zero-day exploits and supply chain attacks, it's getting harder to sleep at night. But the good news is you can harden your security even in a heterogeneous shop with Macs and Windows with ThreatLocker. Worldwide, companies like JetBlue trust ThreatLocker to secure their data and keep their business operations flying high, if you will. What is ThreatLocker? It's zero trust. And it's zero trust implemented in such a way that you can easily implement it, and it is really locked down security. I mean, imagine taking a proactive this is the key, deny by default approach to cybersecurity. So that means you block every action, every process, every user. You just block them unless they're authorized by your team. It's zero trust. No one is, because this is the problem. People get in your network and then, they're trusted. They're in the network. Go ahead, do anything you want. No. This is deny by default. Everybody is no trust unless authorized by your team. And it's brilliant. ThreatLocker helps you do it easily, and very importantly, provides a full audit for every action. That's both for risk management and compliance. And they're going to make it easy. They have a 24/7 US-based support team. They are there for you from the beginning for onboarding and all the way beyond. This is the best way to stop the exploitation of trusted applications within your organization, to keep your business secure, keep it protected from ransomware. Organizations across any industry can benefit from ThreatLocker's ring fencing by isolating critical and trusted applications. You put them inside the ring, right? From unintended uses, weaponizations, you're limiting attackers' lateral movement within your network. And it really works, we know, because ThreatLocker's ring fencing was able to foil a number of attacks that were not stopped by traditional EDR, like the cyber attack on SolarWinds Orion. Remember that? What a nightmare that was a couple of years ago. Customers using ring fencing weren't worried. It didn't happen. They were protected. It actually foiled SolarWinds Orion, the attack. ThreatLocker works for Macs too. Get unprecedented visibility and control of your cybersecurity quickly, easily, and cost effectively. ThreatLocker's zero trust endpoint protection platform. It offers a unified approach to protecting users, devices, and networks against the exploitation of zero-day vulnerabilities. And it really works. It's easy to implement. It's affordable. Look, here, get a free 30-day trial and find out exactly how ThreatLocker can help mitigate unknown threats no one's seen before, and help you with ensuring compliance. Visit threatlocker.com. It's easy to remember, threatlocker.com. We thank them so much for their support of MacBreak Weekly. I think a lot of times people say, you're a Mac show. Nobody has to worry about security on Macs, but we do. We do. and it's really good. I really welcome 1Password, ThreatLocker, our sponsors, because they know that Mac users need to secure, Mac enterprises need to secure their systems as well. All right, let's see. 10th anniversary of Apple Pay. I can't believe it's been 10 years.
I know, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I looked up, I found my article from when I first wrote about this on Six Colors, which was right after I started the website, because the website's a little over 10 years old now. And it was an iPhone 6 that I used to pay, because the Apple Watch was announced but not out yet. And it honestly, the moment the Apple Watch came out, I started just using the Apple Watch for Apple Pay. That's what I used. But in that moment, right there, that was the way you used Apple Pay, was an iPhone 6. And I wrote a little piece about buying some peanut butter at Whole Foods. And
I remember that.
And having the clerk be like,
He said, what are you doing? It's magic.
Yeah, and he was really surprised by it. So yeah, 10 years they've been doing this, and I try to explain this to people outside the US who had a lot of sophisticated payment technology way before the US did, for a lot of different reasons. That Apple's entry into this with Apple Pay really did finally give it the kickstart it needed to get contactless payments to be a thing in the US.
Yes.
And it's a huge thing because obviously the rest of the world's like, well, big deal. We had it before. And this is what I'm telling you is, why didn't we have it? And the answer is lots of reasons, but like nobody had been able to get it over the hump, including Google trying it. And then Apple did it, and it was, for whatever reason, just enough of a kick that now almost everybody has.
Well, and then COVID hit. And, it went from being something that a lot of people use to something that everyone uses to now it's to a point where I go to like when I go to the farmer's market and someone wants cash, I'm like, that's pretty gross.
Most of the farmer's market people, at my farmer's market here, they, and COVID was the motivator there. They all just invested in little Square terminals, and funny. They don't even want your cash anymore.
And the funny thing is that like Vallejo is all Square. Or something, some kind of Apple Pay. San Rafael, like 90% cash.
Interesting.
And you're just like,
it's a cultural thing.
Well, so I just started mapping all the booths. Of course, that's what I do. Is I built a map on my phone of all the booths and which ones take Apple Pay. I'm like, well, I'll just buy everything from those ones. So, but I think that it is amazing how quickly. I think during COVID, we really saw it go from probably, a large percentage of people using it to everyone using it because you just don't want to touch the game.
Well, I would say, COVID was 6 years in, but to Apple Pay, or 5 plus. But what happened was, by laying that groundwork, by putting the infrastructure in place, when it came time that the pandemic happened, people were motivated to use it, and it was there and it was available. And there's so many. I mean, there's so many reasons. I don't want to hand wave it, but people are like, oh, you Americans, you're so behind. But like, the United States is so huge, and because of that, it's so spread out. There are so many individual places where you can buy things, and it means that there is this enormous infrastructure of technology that's used to receive payments, and to turn it over, to wave a wand and just say, oh, get new ones. Easier said than done in the United States, especially where you've got 50 different states with different laws. And like I said, geographically so dispersed. But it was a moment. And like Apple picked a really good moment for it. And they managed to, over the course of a few years, get everybody to kind of like upgrade their hardware and light up those terminals, to the point where 10 years later, there are reports just in the last month about how like Home Depot is starting to finally replace their terminals. Because this is what it takes: is you invest in a whole big point of sale terminal for your giant chain of stores at Home Depot, and it doesn't do Apple Pay. And then people say, oh, you should support Apple Pay. And Home Depot's like, we can't. We just spent millions of dollars. Yep. So now apparently they're starting to roll that out, and a bunch of other stores are starting to roll it out. So it's still, even 10 years later, some of them are still coming along, but Apple gave it the push that started it. It really deserves the credit for making it happen.
I have to admit, it's so unusual, and I don't particularly like using the cards. I don't like dealing with anything else. And so I realized that I used to go to Home Depot all the time, and now I mostly find Ace Hardware and other things. I go to Home Depot when I absolutely can't find something. And I realized I had to look back. I was like, why have I? Because I used to go to Home Depot all the time. I was like treasure land, of things that adults can build and do. And I realized that every time I got to the cashier, I was like, really? And then I'd figure out because a lot of times I'm not carrying my credit cards with me anymore. Like I just have my phone and my watch. And so when I go there, I go, oh, I got to go back to the car. I got to go figure out what happened to where I put those things. And then I'm just like, and when I get into the car after being at Home Depot, I'm always like, I'm never coming here again. And eventually I come back because I need something that I can only get at Home Depot. And, but it is funny that I realize that I seem to never have my cards with me anymore because I don't need them, and that's the thing that's happened.
Yeah, I mean, I'm at the library again, but they have a wonderful. They don't. My library doesn't do like an annual or like a quarterly book sale. They just have just a section of like books for sale, and the number of times where it's like, oh, I don't have $1 with me. I don't even have $1 in change with me. And now there are times I have to actually like buy, like if I'm buying a soda on the way to the library, I will pay in cash just to make sure I will have singles to pay. But the biggest sign of Apple's victory here is that, at least in the United States, they have managed to band-aid the technology, where like I've had to learn to stop saying, hey, do you do pay by phone? Because they'll say, oh, you mean Apple Pay? Like, well, okay, I don't want to say this is an Android phone, and it uses an NFC standard that is interoperable between banks and pay. I was like, yeah, Apple Pay. Like, oh yes, absolutely.
So actually, that's historically, it really wasn't Apple that made this happen. Apple's timing was very good because MasterCard and Visa had agreed to introduce EMV to the U.S., a standard that had been used worldwide that year. And so what that meant was that merchants were going to have to upgrade their terminals to support EMV, which sometimes you call it chip and pin. But the idea that you could use a chip. So Apple's release of Apple Pay was timed so that when Apple Pay came out, these merchants were going to upgrade. The hope was merchants would say, well, we might as well upgrade it with touch to pay. And the merchants that didn't, like Home Depot and was it Walgreens? I can't remember the drugstore that wouldn't do it, didn't want to do it because they didn't, and this is, I think, in the long run, the key to why Apple Pay succeeded. They didn't get information about the customer. They just got an EMV token. And so these merchants like Home Depot, it wasn't merely that, oh, we don't want to do the technology, because they had to do EMV. They just didn't do Apple Pay because they wanted to keep the info about the customer.
So it's a little more complicated than that, but you're right. Apple's timing is part of it. I think it's a combination. There was an attempt in, I think, 2012 to do this. Or maybe it was actually
in 2012. MasterCard and Visa agreed that by October 1st, 2015.
Right. So in this era, they were trying to do it. I at one point in I think 2013 got a card with a chip in it, and then in 2014 they took it away because they're like, no, forget it. In 2014 they did a pilot where during the World Series you could buy, like, I bought a hot dog using tap to pay, right? So that was a new thing that they did. Google had been trying it and couldn't get it. So it's this, I really want to say this, that I think it's a combination of, if Apple tried to do this and there was no technology, obviously it wouldn't work. But we've also seen this try to be pushed into society, and it spun its wheels and it didn't work. Well, and what happened is Apple. It was a
coincidence. It was a coinciding event, right?
It's two things, right? They had
both things happened,
and they had to both be there. There need to be enough tap to pay terminals available in the world for there to be some.
Apple, I don't think, could have unilaterally done EMV.
But what Apple, the secret sauce that I believe Apple brought to the equation is it created demand by making a big deal of Apple Pay on the iPhone, and it made people want to see. And I have, in that story about my first Apple Pay experience, there's a big sign that says now accepting Apple Pay at every single Whole Foods terminal. And so what they did was they used their brand and they created consumer demand, which what it did was they could take advantage of the places where that technology had been installed, and they could shame and push the companies that were dragging their feet on it to get on board. And that, I think, is where Apple pushed this thing over the edge, is that it had enough loyal users who wanted to use the whizzy thing from Apple that they were able to show interest and push and get it in there.
Yeah. And I mean, MasterCard and Visa had a lot of impact on this. Right. And they started, remember, shipping out cards with chips in them at that time and all of that. But I think, and there was also, by the way, one of the reasons MasterCard and Visa wanted it is because security was so terrible on the swipe and sign that they were losing a lot of money every year to fraud. So they wanted something more secure. And I think it was a confluence, when it's an idea whose time had come. Let's say that.
I mean, a lot of times, you look at bands and, that happened because all the right people showed up and at the right time and with the right people were interested in grunge, and you end up with Nirvana, but there's 100 places where that didn't happen and the band was really good and never went anywhere.
Right.
And I think in the
timing's everything.
The timing was there. I do think that Apple benefited from people, Mac users or Apple users tending to be a little militant about their stuff. And because I remember talking on the show about the fact that I just moved to Pittsburgh and there was like a CVS down the street, and I went down there and I bought I bought something with Apple Pay, and I came back and I was like, I'm just not going to shop anywhere more than once that doesn't have Apple Pay, and I think that
here's our show from October 2014. MacBreak Weekly.
Probably me talking about that.
We sent Jeff Needles out
to use Apple Pay.
to use Apple Pay
because that is the
at a Whole Foods, and there it is. There's the little Apple Pay logo. I will be fair. I at the time was very skeptical. I said, "Why is that more convenient than just taking a credit card out of your wallet?" I did not kind of buy into the notion that this was much more convenient. What I missed was the watch, because the watch hadn't come out yet, which does make it, because it's on your wrist already. I mean, you did have to take the phone out of your pocket to make that work. I don't know if I've used the phone for Apple Pay more than a handful of times. I also missed customers' desire for privacy and security.
Yeah.
And I think that people really, it took them a little while, it took them a few years, but eventually realized this is much more secure and much more
doesn't give you the
You
number.
didn't have to worry about card skimmers wherever you go. That's a big win for me.
Exactly.
And it's not just that. When I pass, it took me a little while to realize this, but it was not passing my debit card to the vendor. It's taking it's taking my money and then giving a new number to the.
By the way,
and so it
in
was
Europe, restaurants never take your credit card. You swipe it at the table. Right. That is slowly becoming
starting to happen here,
just
though,
a little
now,
bit in
right?
the U.S.
I that happens to me more. I'm surprised how often that's happening now, because finally they have those handheld terminals that have tap to pay, and they come out with it now, and it's getting there. But again, this is why I think it's a big deal that it's 10 years of Apple Pay, just because everything just moves so slowly in the US. And again, yes, part of it is because our financial system is very conservative and moves very slowly. But part of it is you can't just wave the magic wand and say, let's just upgrade all the terminals, because you're talking about a number that is, it's more than the terminals in all of Europe, right? Let alone one.
Well, that's why I'm
country.
saying that decision was critical to the success of Apple Pay, because otherwise those terminals wouldn't have been prevalent. And by the way, look how long it took before you could use your watch to pay for the Tokyo subway or the New York City subway.
Right, because it's an infrastructure upgrade. They had to upgrade the turnstiles.
It's so amazing.
Exactly.
To walk up to a turnstile, you don't need a token. You don't need a Clipper card. You just tap your watch.
The funny thing,
my mind was blown. Yeah, that was incredible.
The on the other side of that, when you see like how you don't get traction, is I was in the I'm trying to think of which airport I was in. It was the DC, I think DC airport, the IAD, I think. Anyway, Amazon has these. You just walk in, right? Yeah. You just walk into the store and you can walk out. You don't have to check in, check out.
Facing those out, by the way. The
funny thing is that there were like 4 of them that I walked past, and all of them are empty because they have a turnstile, and you have to give them your credit card before you walk in,
or your handprint,
or whatever. And both of those, and I even tried my card and it wouldn't take it. Yeah. And I was like, well, I'm going to go buy it. And the funny thing, but this gets into like Amazon doesn't have that kind of.
You can move too fast.
I admit that if that was an Apple store, I probably would have gone through a couple more bumps before I decided I wasn't. But as soon as I actually tried to use a card and it wouldn't take it, I was like, oh, this is stupid. I'm not going to go somewhere else. And I never considered going back. And no one else did either, because these stores are all empty. They're sitting at the airport and all the other stores are, busy, and these were just completely empty. So it was very, I think that it does come down to the brand oftentimes being able to push that forward. And I also think that, and I don't know what the difference was between Android, but I think one of the things Apple tends to do better is that subtle interface thing, subtle ways that it works and bounces and is easy and doesn't have friction. It's very easy to go, oh, this has too much friction, and almost immediately stop using it. And I think Apple users are probably more sensitive to that than others. But I do think that is another factor. Apple tends to do that better than almost everybody else.
And I think the other side of this is, would the Apple Watch have sold as well if it weren't for Apple Pay?
Oh, interesting idea.
I think so. I say that only because
I tell you what,
I never
it
use
sure
my Apple
makes the
Watch.
watch a desirable thing, right? When I buy groceries, everything with my watch.
What's funny is I never use the watch for my Apple Pay.
Oh.
It was like, so I don't, I think what happened was I had a problem where I had one watch and a new phone, and I had trouble getting them connected to each other.
It's way better on the watch because it's strapped to your wrist. It's already authenticated, so you don't have to do Face ID.
Yeah, I should do it more. I just don't.
Yeah, remember when in the early days of Apple Pay, you had to give them a pin? What was it? A pin, and there was like this, and you had to show them the card. It really took a while before it did become actually convenient. And I think
they changed a lot of the policies where they wanted you to sign, and you're like,
yeah, remember that,
dude? I do not need to sign an Apple Pay transaction. Those are gradually, again, 10 years later, they're still changing, but we're in a much better place than we were.
Yeah,
yeah. For me, my watch is primarily my fitness and timers. Like that's like I have lots and lots and lots of timers.
It's clearly the main thing you use everything for, Alex.
I do. Timing. I like to manage time. Look, here's the thing: is that I like taking little naps. I can't sleep if I don't have an alarm. So I can't go to sleep if I don't know when I'm going to wake up. I just can't go to sleep. So. So I always have. I'm very attached to timers, and then I have a horrible habit of forgetting my wash. I oftentimes wash my clothes 2 or 3 times because I forget to wash, and they sit down there. So timers for that.
Oh wow!
And then
no
I know these are all
timers.
horrible things. But the primary thing for me now is the fitness, the steps, laps, all the different trajectories. I think that's the thing that's really kind of why I use the watch. But it's funny because I don't think Apple Pay is that. For me, doesn't have any impact on it.
Huh.
You just give me a thought. Like the only, I stopped wearing smartwatches as my daily driver, like at the start of the summer. The only thing that I miss is that really trivial, like, again, I'm just stopping in on my way to wherever to buy a drink, just that trivial tap to pay. And if Apple or Google or somebody came out with like a simple, like nondescript fitness band that all it did was like do Google Wallet or Apple Pay, I would absolutely buy it, and that would be on my right wrist. Not just for the reasons because
You're missing out, Andy.
Well, not only for that, but because when I do go to New York, that's one of the times where I do definitely like where. But every time I go through a turnstile, I have to like turn this way and tap because the turnstile is like on the right.
It's on the right, and I'm a lefty, and I have my.
If I just have a fitness band, just go bump. I would absolutely do that.
They should have a little Apple Pay band that you could wear. Why not? Right.
I have a friend who had an RFID implant like put into her wrist, and so she was using it as her way of protesting the new security systems at work that required her to card in pretty much everywhere, and so that was her form of protest. And so she had this thing in her wrist for like 7 years.
Jeez. Well, so the whole reason I bring this up, I think it's very interesting that technology both simultaneously takes a long time and is faster than you imagine. And so it took 10 years before Apple Pay really became the juggernaut it is today. And yet it happened overnight in a way, right? It feels like, wow, it's like ATMs. When I remember, you probably all too young to remember this, but we used to have to go into a bank to get money. Yep. And the ATM transformed that experience.
No, I had, but my very first trip, I was like 19 years old, maybe 18 years old for Macworld in San Francisco. It's like, all I knew was that I knew that there was a Wells Fargo ATM like 3 blocks away from where I was staying, and that it would accept my ATM card. And that's when, like, that was one of the dividing lines between my generation and my dad's generation, where it's like, well, you mean that you don't have to, well, aren't you going to like take out a whole bunch? No, I'm just going to withdraw, and I'm going to take with me enough money to get like for a couple of days, but I'll be able to just withdraw money. So how?
I go to Europe without going to the exchange booth at the airport because I know I could just take I can get euros.
Yeah.
No problem at an ATM. Yeah. Lisa's mom doesn't trust ATMs and refuses to have an ATM card. There is a whole generation,
This is how long was it before I trust? It took me a while before I could trust depositing a check via paper check via ATM instead of going up to the counter, and then there was a while before I could trust depositing a check via phone instead of going to the ATM, and now that's completely moot because now I actually trust the direct deposit for most of my clients or electronic payments. So it does take a while to get used to the idea that this is new. You don't have to be one of the first people to help the industry figure out that there's an easy way to drain a bank account. But at some point, the water is warm enough that you can figure out that, okay, I'm going to trust it.
I think convenience ultimately wins it over. By the way, I was in Canada a month ago, and I said, do you do Apple Pay? I can't remember, because Canada, unfortunately, gets screwed all the time by Apple. Yes, they do. 78 markets now do Apple Pay. 11,000 banks and network partners, hundreds of millions of customers. It is very, very widely used. It is a success.
Well, when you're talking about ATMs too, I realized that I almost never go to an ATM now because I don't use cash.
Yeah.
It's occasionally I have cash, a couple dollars stashed around here and there. Yeah. Or I find them in the wash or something like that. But I don't, it's so rare for me to have cash at all.
Although Peter Todd, the creator of Bitcoin, thinks you're crazy for not using cash because it's not, you're not anonymous. Your privacy is violated by every other form of payment except Bitcoin and cash.
Yeah. Try to be boring.
Yeah,
that's my key.
Again, if it weren't for taking walks on Saturday mornings and discovering a yard sale, I would probably not have cash in my wallet. I always have like $100, couple $100 just in case there's a yard sale. It's like, wow, you're actually selling this like $300 Wacom tablet for $40. It's like, unfortunately, all I have is 78 cents. Can you not sell it for the next while I try to find an ATM in the neighborhood?
Every time Lisa and I are walking downtown, I say, let's go to the bank. I want to get some money. Go to the ATM and get some money. She says, what do you use cash for? You know what I use cash for? Tipping. I believe firmly that service people should be tipped in cash.
That's my thing. That the only time I have cash is when I travel and I'm going to stay at a hotel and I have to go get $40 and then I break it all into ones.
Yeah, you got to tip the bellhop. You got to tip the room. I always leave actually now I leave a 20 on the bed for the maid. I just feel like you should. Also, it's a hard enough life now. It's
when you tip in cash, you know that they get the cash. You know
they get it.
The
merchant doesn't keep it. Yep. And they can pretend they didn't get it, and they don't have to pay the IRS. But I didn't say that. All right. Somebody in this room has a new iPad mini, and I am very curious to find out who it is. We'll all.
We're shocked.
Spoiled.
That was going to be the teaser.
I was going to do a commercial then say...
Also, one of the people in this conversation is a murderer.
You may wonder why I've brought you all here today.
Too much Diet Mountain Dew, sorry.
Can I say...
You jumped the tease.
It's not necessarily the one person using the Android phone, okay? That's only on Apple. That's only on TV and movies.
You guys are so cute. We will come back and talk to Jason Snell about his iPad mini. Mine comes tomorrow because I did a BTO. I wanted to max out the storage. And so I know a lot of you have received your iPad minis. They started arriving last Friday, right?
No.
No? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
When do they arrive?
I don't know. Is it
mine
Thursday,
comes tomorrow?
Friday, tomorrow? Maybe it's tomorrow.
I just got a notification. Good news.
All right.
Items in order were W6497333.
This is sweet embargoed.
The delivery company will be stealing your iPad mini at 8:34 a.m. tomorrow.
I think I got 24 more hours where I can lord this over the world. I have a tiny iPad, and you don't.
I thought I was getting it later. Oh, that's the normal. Okay, well that's good to know. I'm getting it on time. And by the way, another person that I treat very well is my UPS driver, Tony.
Yes.
Because I want him to make, in fact, he says, when Apple stuff comes, you want me to drop it off in the morning? I said, yes, please. Lisa's such a nice person. She has a refrigerator out at the front with soda pops and water and stuff in it and says, take some. Tony appreciates that. And as a result, I shall get my iPad.
I never thought of that. That's awesome.
Isn't that nice? Mm-hmm. I don't know. She says she saw somebody do it and she said, oh, this is great. Let me tell you, those poor Amazon delivery guys really appreciate it. On those hot days we had last month,
they're not
very
treated
grateful.
well either. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Kindness to an Amazon delivery driver is especially welcome.
We've always tipped our delivery drivers because as probably you guys also get a lot of packages. We get we get many packages.
Once I actually fixed my UPS driver's phone while signing for my new phone. because he knows that it comes from
There you go.
from Apple, must be it.
There you
hey,
go.
do you know if it has that new blah blah blah? So, well, your phone has it. Like, really? How do I do that? So I'm sorry for whoever was late with their package after that. I was trying to be nice to my UPS guy.
Yeah, that's you're right. And I told Tony, you don't have to bring it first. It's okay. But if it's on your way, go ahead. If it says AI on the front,
I wouldn't say no.
Wouldn't say no. Our show today literally brought to you by CacheFly, our content delivery network. In fact, how many for like 15 years you've been hearing me say bandwidth for MacBreak Weekly is provided by CacheFly at CacheFly.com/twit. For over 20 years, CacheFly's been doing this, a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. That's why we love it. Serving over 5,000 companies in over 80 countries. CacheFly it was Matt Levine at CacheFly, one of the founders, who came to me early on in Twit's career, because I was suffering and we could not get the podcasts out in timely fashion at all. He said, we can fix it. And we've been using CacheFly ever since. Others have approached us. No, we love CacheFly's lag-free video loading, their hyper-fast downloads, their friction-free site interactions. CacheFly's it for us. It's the only CDN built for throughput. They do offer ultra-low latency video streaming. And get this, deliver video to over 1 million concurrent users with less than 1 second latency. Wow. Lightning fast gaming delivers downloads faster, zero lag, glitches, outages. You got a website or anything with images that you're serving. Mobile content optimization offers automatic and simple image optimization. You just upload the image and automatically it's optimized so your site will load faster on any size screen. They have, and this was really important to us, flexible month-to-month billing as long as you need it, because we didn't know when the peaks or valleys would be in the downloads. And then once you figure that all out, discounts for fixed terms. The point really for us was we designed our own contract, and you can too when you switch to CacheFly. CacheFly delivers rich media content up to 158% faster than other major CDNs. They allow you to shield your site content in their cloud. I think we were very early. We started storing the show. When you download it, you're getting it from CacheFly directly, which means no cache misses, 100% cache hit ratio. And that's a big deal. With CacheFly's elite managed packages, you get the VIP treatment. These guys are so good. You'll have a dedicated account manager who will be with you from day one, making sure you get a smooth implementation and reliable 24/7 support when you need it. I think the real test for us for CacheFly is people don't complain. You know, when you download your podcast, when you watch the video, when you're looking at our site, boom, it happens like that. And there's no problem. That's the secret of CacheFly. Learn how you get your first month free at cachefly.com/twit. I'll say it again. That's CACHEFLY.com/twit. Thank you, CacheFly. Very happy customers of CacheFly. All right, now, so I thought the iPad Mini would come out the Friday after they made it available for delivery, but I guess it's coming out. People are going to start getting it tomorrow, Wednesday. Yeah, that's when Mike comes. I thought it was because it was PTO. Oh, good. So, I mean, look, it looks kind of the same, right? Can I use the old? Can I use the iPad Mini's cover?
You should be able to. The dimensions are identical to the old Mini.
Okay.
It is the old Mini in almost every way, except the color is less saturated, which is super boring. No, the buttons. I was told that the volume buttons moved the last time, so the volume buttons are still up here where they were before, up at the top.
Okay. All the buttons are at the top.
Yeah.
So that leaves the side free for the magnet
for Apple Pencil, which is now Pencil. Now it supports Pencil Pro as well as the USB-C Pencil. So Apple's slowly getting that. Remember, we talked about this idea that the Pencil was kind of a mess, but they were sort of slowly resolving it as they released new models. And so this one now supports Pencil Pro as well as the USB-C Pencil. And you can magnetically charge on the side with the Pencil Pro if you want to. And it's identical to the other one in almost every way. They changed the display controller a little bit. That may have fixed the jelly scrolling problem that people complained about.
I never saw the jelly scrolling. falling. But
I struggled to see it too. I didn't see it on this one. My colleague Federico Vitici at Mac Stories says that he didn't see it, but I think David Pierce at The Verge said he did. So I don't know. I don't know whether there's jelly.
Maybe David has jelly eyeballs.
I leave it to the jelly scrolling experts to tell us. So really, why is this? And it's what we said last week, which is this is to put the A17 Pro chip from last year's iPhone 15 in it, because that supports Apple Intelligence and it allows Apple to they're checking the boxes off of all the new products they sell to make sure that probably within a few months they will all support Apple Intelligence. And
does it have more RAM?
I think we don't know, but I assume it does. I assume that it's got 8 gigs of RAM, and that's all part of the same deal to get Apple Intelligence on here.
Okay. So I really didn't need to buy. Not only did I not need to buy a new one, I didn't need to buy the new Smart Folio cover either.
I don't think you did, unless your old one's beat up.
Well, it is, but this says specifically it's for the A17.
It's
iPad
possible they
mini.
moved the magnets or something, but I don't know if I would. I mean, I can't test that, but it seems pretty much identical to me.
I will test it tomorrow, and I will report back.
Thank you.
This is all. Somebody said I could put it in the dishwasher, but I had a white cover. It's just beat to hell.
I use some little dish soap and hand wash
Scrub
it, and then you hang it to dry, and it dries out.
I got the Mr. Clean scrubbers. I'll use that on that.
You don't need to scrub it. Just a little soap. Just soap and water.
Can I just say, Dawn dishwashing liquid is usually the recommended go-to for cleaning like all kinds of stuff, but also
including
like
oiled
surfaces.
birds. Yeah,
but they actually put that in the label. They added a new thing which is sort of like a foaming like sprayer.
Yeah, I have that. Yeah,
and that's what I use for, again, like things that like the covers of phones, covers of tablets.
And do you let it sit for a little bit?
For a little bit, and then you just wash it off, and it's like, wow, I can't believe that I lived with that for so long because I was intimidated that it was going to take so long to work.
Oh, good. I have some of that. They keep coming up with different form factors for Dawn. I don't understand.
Well, the cleaning subreddit, like every third response involves either Dawn dishwashing liquid or the sprayer or Barkeeper's Friend. If you have those
that's why I have Barkeeper's Friend.
Yeah. and I'll be damned if they aren't right every single damn time. It's like,
I didn't know that there was a cleaning subreddit. I am now following the cleaning.
It's the reason why a whole bunch of things that like I keep meaning to get to once I can figure out if it doesn't come off with Windex, I don't know what to do about it.
Or Gooby Gone, right? Gooby Gone is the surface.
Or if it's a surface I don't want to use steel wool on, it's like I have no clue. But then you go to the cleaning subreddit, it's like, oh, well, just put this, and this, mix them together into a paste, spread it on that, leave it for like a good hour or so, and then just spray it off. Like, oh.
Do you think OxyClean is as good as Bartender's Friend, Alex?
I've never used Bartender's Friend, but I can tell you OxyClean cleans about everything. It just scares me because it's so good at it. Like you put it on,
like,
you're
what the hell's in this?
This can't be healthy. Like if I clean something with OxyClean, then I put it in the washer. Like I need you to rinse this off. Like, I don't know what happened here, but it clears everything out. Yeah, so it's I also
somebody's recommending Simple
clothes.
Green, which is good too.
That's good too.
Yeah,
dollar stores have amazing cleaning products,
and they're all $1.
Yeah, and it's not like this. It's just amazing. Like something will cost you $8 and doesn't work, but go to this one thing that you find in a subreddit. Oh, it's $1.25, and like, wow,
that's awesome.
I feel smarter and less like a dope now.
Yeah, I did not say booby gone. I said goo be gone.
I think it's just called Goo Gone, right?
Or Goo Gone. Maybe there's no B. It's just Goo Gone.
Goo Gone.
Which is, I think, some sort of orange oil or something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
citrus.
Yeah. Some sort of. It's probably like some monster chemical they just make smell like oranges. But anyway, speaking of cleaning, the FCC is going to require all hearing aids and phones to work together. And Apple, in order to make these AirPods, which, by the way, the iPhone has done forever. I've always had no problem pairing my iPhone to my hearing aids. Apple is now required to make these cleanable because apparently that's another requirement from the FDA that hearing aids have to have a cleaning. So there's a whole page on cleaning your AirPods. 7 years on, Iowa's Apple data center. We're at the dregs now. I got to do the Vision Pro. We're at the bottom of the barrel. 7 years later, Apple data center in Iowa finally opens in Waukee, Iowa. There it is. Walkie $29.95. That's not the cost. That's just the number. You could paint your car for $29.95, however.
Earl Scheib reference acknowledged.
Yes.
Well, you had a Die Hard reference earlier that I missed, but
I
the
did.
the chat room caught it. So
Back to the coast. Get together. We'll have a few laughs. Yeah.
Okay, let's do the Vision Pro. Play the thing. There's quite a few Vision Pro.
Turning into Eugene Scott here. Oh,
Play the thing.
play it.
Play it. I want that chair and then the hats. I have the hats. I have the Gene Scott hats. I just need the...
Play when the Saints go marching in. Play it again.
Play it again.
Now we're really down a rabbit hole.
So we now established that the Vision, any news about the Vision Pro is under the bottom of the barrel. It's like
Apparently.
the grimy thing under the, okay.
There we go.
That's just because I'm...
Look, Dr. Eugene Scott was just an ordinary television preacher who was obsessed with horse training and the Pyramid of Evil. Those are the things he was really wanting to talk about. That was a classic.
The name of his show was Dr. Gene Scott on Hebrews.
Yep.
Which I don't know if that would go these days. I don't.
Yeah, that's the book of the Bible is what he was talking about, probably.
Was it? I don't know. He would always have a Bible.
He was incomprehensible. We did when I was in high school. We would watch his show just because it was baffling, and we were like,
"Oh,
well, I
loved
understand
it.
What I'm seeing."
And
it's
when you're
amazing.
high, it's enjoyable.
Well, and he was like literally he would just declare at points that he wanted the video. Like how Leo very occasionally will be like, "Yeah, play the Vision Pro thing," which is why I said it. He would just do that to his people. He'd be like, "Play when the Saints go marching in," and they had like a video of like him training his horses while the Saints go marching in. It was a thing, folks. You missed it. This is what we used to do when we didn't have the internet.
He was basically a radio DJ type, but preacher.
Yeah,
and then he would do
just fill hours of time in the middle of the night. There he is.
There's Gene Scott.
There's Doc.
Dr. Gene.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and it was kind of incomprehensible. I mean, look at the whiteboard. It's like conspiracy theory 101. That's crazy.
Yeah, it was wild stuff.
It's like
it's just look, because you see Satan when he connects to the Pyramid of Evil is ground coupled to the crop formation of the peas and
this was an earlier, simpler time.
This is we didn't have the internet. We didn't have YouTube.
When we could lie to everyone all at one time rather than.
This is, by the way, there's quite a bit of Gene Scott on YouTube if you want to catch
we didn't
up
need
on
no
what you
algorithm
missed.
back in the 1980s.
And he would wear hats. A lot of times a cowboy hat.
It's amazing.
Back to the Vision Pro. You can tell
Pro.
I am probably a little Vision Pro hostile, I think, at this point.
Maybe.
That's fair to say. Apple headset stalls. Wait a minute. Maybe it's not just me. This is the Wall Street Journal. Struggles to attract killer apps in first year. Virtual reality software developers have not embraced Vision Pro, which has lower than expected sales in its first year. There's 2 people wearing it in Beijing. I thought they weren't selling it in China.
I guess they are.
Oh, that's right.
Tim is in China right now and is one of the. He did a walk around with a famed photographer, whatever, and of course she's interviewing him while wearing the headset. So Vision Pro.
Oh, and Jimmy Fallon wore the Vision Pro. So that's 2 people. Now that the Quest 3S is out, we're starting to see teardowns of that. It's a lot cheaper.
It's a Quest 2, it turns out.
Yeah, it's exactly the same. Why surgeons are wearing the Vision Pro in operating rooms. This is from Time magazine.
Yeah. So they talked to a surgeon who actually like got early access to it, and get your head around this, while using a pre-release version of the Vision Pro and whatever software was running on it, he performed a paraesophageal hernia operation.
Please don't.
Which is when there's a rupture in the diaphragm, and so he had to like put somebody's stomach back through it and sew it all up while wearing a Vision Pro that was not running final software. But
this makes me so nervous. Can you imagine waking up and seeing the nurse and the doctor wearing goggles like that? With their, did they turn off the eyes? Because that would really creep me out.
I'd be more creeped out about people with knives about to plunge into me. And
Yeah, well, that's what I'm saying. They are armed.
I'm not actually under yet. Please keep giving me anesthesia. Don't start.
They are armed.
I don't think they should. I mean, I think that was a little crazy, but there are a lot of operations now that are happening where they're putting, they're very comfortable with a stereoscopic.
Yeah.
I mean, you see when you actually see, I was streaming something that had this, and it just looks normal until you realize that they're stitching something that's like a millimeter. Right. And you have a doctor sitting there looking at the goggles, and they've got these little joysticks, and they're just kind of like, or these little hand things, and they're kind of doing their thing. And it takes years of training to get to that point.
Yeah.
But they're doing things that they could never do before. So I think that I understand where they're coming from. I don't know if I would have used beta. So I don't know if I would have agreed to do beta. They probably walked up to the person and said, hey, we're going to do this Apple thing.
They did 20 minimally invasive operations at the University of California, San Diego.
From the context of this Time interview or this Time story, it's not as though he was running a custom app for running surgery.
Right.
He seemed to be talking as though just like using these minimally invasive like laparoscopic surgery tools, you have a big screen that you're looking at while you're at the controls. It was basically now the big screen is actually being projected by this thing. And he said that the screens that they have to get in usually cost like $40,000 or $50,000, $3,500 for a screen that is much for his needs as good, if not better. Makes this a lot more palatable, a lot more interesting. But
he tried Google Glass, and the Microsoft HoloLens said it wasn't high resolution enough.
Yeah, obviously.
But when he saw the Vision Pro, he said, "This is exactly what I've been looking for." We were all blown away. It was better than we even expected, he said.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
Different product. Yeah. I mean,
that's very cool.
Both of those are mostly meant for like if you're doing a repair on a military jet, here is a way to have like the checklist of things you're supposed to be doing, like accessible to your field of vision, not like I have an entire virtual display that I'm looking at instead of what I'm actually looking at. So, but yeah,
there you go.
Like we said before, like we were saying, and all the times we were trying to talk about the Vision Pro before it was released and we knew anything about it, that the one slam dunk market for this is always going to be medical training vertical markets, and there seems to be already a market for $3,000, $4,000 headsets like this. In a couple of years, when they come out with something that is more MetaQuest like, that's when we'll hopefully see things really turn up. It was surprising that. We mentioned this a little bit earlier in the show, that there really is, developers seem to be really keen on taking an iPad app and clicking the button to say, yes, make this work on Vision Pro. They seem to be keen on basically doing a cake decorating job on an iPad app where, okay, we will make this a native Vision Pro app, but it is essentially an iPad app, a 2D iPad app with more UI dinguses on it. They're specific to the Vision Pro. We haven't been seeing developers that are making amazing like creative apps with it. I mean, my favorite app still for the Vision Pro is just the one where that will play a video player that will let you choose what kind of a vintage or modern screen you want to watch it on. So if you want to watch it on an I Love Lucy on a period appropriate TV, you can have that TV in your office and watch it. That's interesting, and that's
television,
cool.
Right?
Yeah,
by Sandwich.
Yep. Sorry, thank you. I couldn't
Good
remember
one.
it.
Yeah. I think that for me, I mean, my number one use is still just watching movies with it, and which I do a lot of. Just because for whatever reason, as I said before, my vision it's sharper on the Apple TV than anywhere else in the world, and so I can see it much more clearly. So I think that is still the killer use case. I do think that the problem with a lot of the apps, I download a lot of the apps and play with them, and I usually play with them for a couple minutes and then go, okay. And it feels like the developers don't get it or don't, just are still trying to learn the language. Like it's just a different language and a different way of doing things. Like there's pieces of it that really work. I keep on coming back to JigSpace. When I show someone how the Vision Pro works, I always take them like, okay, open up JigSpace. And the problem is the authoring tools of JigSpace are either really expensive or hard to get to. I mean, it's not like anybody can just build that out. If Apple put those tools into something like Keynote, it would be a lot. It'd be pretty interesting. But I think that I haven't seen very many apps that you play with them and you just like, oh, I want to use this all the time. And I feel like, and a lot of them there was a big rush to get into the store. And a lot of them are just kind of dorky. I mean, and I think that's the problem is that there's not that many people developing. And the reality is that most of the apps on the App Store are kind of dorky. And so
that's true. Actually, that's a good point. Yeah.
So there's just like
there's just millions of them. So
yeah, there's just so many that statistically you get a couple good ones. And but 99% of the apps on the App Store are not usable in my opinion. But the 1% is still so many.
There's go ahead.
There's just a math thing there.
Sorry. Yeah, but there's still, like, even when there weren't that many iPhone apps out there were still some real standouts. What I've always been looking forward to, and I'm still convinced it's going to happen, is that Apple developers, they are the most creative, perceptive, think outside the box. I've got a great idea and I'm going to pursue it, whether there's a market for this or not. I just think it's a great idea. Those are some of the greatest minds in development that I've ever seen, and I'm kind of disappointed there isn't like. So someone got the iPhone and thought, ooh, it would be great to use the accelerometer to make this the ultimate dice shaker. And there's an awesome dice shaker for it, and you love it, and you actually use it. And it doesn't justify the entire expense of the iPhone, but you feel like, yes, this is something that I couldn't have had on any other device before this came along. And I just don't think that the same thing has been true for any of the apps that have come up for the Vision Pro yet. Maybe that'll change once more developers get a hold of it. Once there is a larger market for it, I think that's probably the biggest stumbling block that how the best developers, their time is literally translated into money. And are they going to, if they've got X hours in the week, even X hours in the week to do something purely for fun, are they going to do it for something that maybe a few hundred people are going to be able to even see, let alone pay for? Or are they going to make another interesting twist for a web app and an interesting twist for the iPad, for the iPhone? It's going to be for the bigger audience. So again, long runway. We're in the early days. It would have been great if Apple had shown off something that really seemed to move the needle. They didn't. That's fine. They'll stick with it. And
do you think if, as rumored, they ship a less expensive Vision Pro next year, that will juice the market?
Once they're going to learn a hell of a lot from the launch of the Vision Pro. I think one of the most important things they learned is that they sold a hell of a lot the first month, and then dropped down like a rock after that. So there were people who were interested in this thing, but none of them were good. None of them were such happy customers that they convinced other people to see them, to get a Vision Pro. And a lot of these things were actually returned. They're going to stick with the idea of we want to make the best of anything. That's another thing from that Wall Street Journal, another quote from the Wall Street Journal article. Like they're committed to doing the best of whatever they do. They're still committed to that. They're going to learn from that. They're going to learn from continuing to look at what Meta is doing. And they're going to figure out, okay, there is a happy medium here between creating a $3,500 fanciful this is the pinnacle, this is an aspirational product, and making something that is actually relevant to what people want to do with VR in this way. And
that's true. They have a lot more input on what people are doing with it and what they want to do with it. For instance, if lying on the couch watching a movie on the ceiling is the number one thing people do, you could make a Vision Pro that's just a big screen, right? And it doesn't have a lot of the other features.
I also happen to think that in 5 or 10 years' time, we'll look back at the Vision Pro and we'll see it as a platform that Apple used to develop augmented reality, like the actual glasses.
But that's not spatial computing, glasses. And they seem all in on this idea.
Yeah, but they've had ample evidence right now that people don't want this in their lives so far. Okay, if all you're doing is creating a 2D app that you can put virtual displays anywhere, people want to do that on a screen. They would much rather do that if they want to do that on a $1,000 device or a $500 device. That will work. I think that what will really crack it for people is when people are wearing what seems to be a style of eyeglasses that nonetheless can give them interesting observations, interesting help, guided by AI. The ability of the killer demo for augmented reality is not virtual reality. It's augmented reality. The ability to be looking at a screen, even if I'm just reading something on the web and saying, I don't understand what's going on in that third illustration, the one that has the red lines on it. What does this mean? And it will explain the economic terms that it's trying to illustrate and say, well, who created this? And the ability, or not just the ability to be walking down the street and have a highlight of, oh, that's the building you're supposed to be meeting somebody at. But the idea of having to have footnotes, being able to have footnotes on pretty much anything you're looking at. That's going to be a killer thing. Once you have it on a pair of glasses that might look like a very distinctive pair of glasses, just like the Apple's AirPods Pro are very distinctive looking. They know that it's a technical device, but they don't think that you're wearing a big pair of ski goggles or something obnoxious on your face. That's the big deal. And I think that the biggest value of the Vision Pro as it is right now is feeding into this next generation of stuff.
Jason, go ahead, Alex.
All I can say is I really do think, I still feel like it's a content thing, and I don't know whether it's not just content, but the type of apps and so on and so forth. I don't see a lot of apps that I'm drawn to go, oh, I have to jump in and use that. When I touch on, there are things like, again, I come back to JigSpace. When I touch on that, I'm like, oh my gosh, I can see how this could be used all over the place, all the time. And the problem is that there's no pipeline to generate the content into that. Like if Apple looked at JigSpace and Sherlocked them with Keynote, there'd be a lot of people using their iPads, their, so on and so forth. And Apple's like 2 inches away from that because they have USDZ. They have a lot of, the problem with USDZ, it doesn't really understand 3D space for objects. And so it can display something, it just doesn't do it very well. And so the main thing is that when you see that kind of thing of Apple, I think Apple has to make some of the content solutions easier. And I think you can see Apple doing that with the Blackmagic camera, which is probably the piece of technology that as someone who's been doing 180 or 360 for 15 years in 3D, the Blackmagic camera, if it can live up to anywhere near what Apple talked about at WWDC, is the most exciting thing that a lot of us have seen for a very long time, because the ability to generate content with the software built in, with the hardware there, that's been something that has been missing forever. Like it is an art project to build a 180-degree stereo spatial image, right? And so that's a solve. But Apple's got to solve other problems in that area, and part of it's educating the developers. Part of it is building the tools that if the developers aren't going to make it easy and relatively inexpensive to generate the content, Apple needs to start building the tools that allow them to do that. Because I think that you could get, a Kia, for instance, you're kind of like, when are we going to have something that shows us, I can put the goggles on and put my furniture together without swearing so much, that'd be great. And the headset is capable of that. We just don't see it because the tools aren't there. And I think that this gets back into the same problem that I keep on coming back to, the same problem with books, as Apple built a cool platform, didn't fully finish it, and didn't get the right people building content for it, and I think that I think Apple's used to being, the cute person in class that always gets what they want, and they're not used to actually working at anything, and I think that they're not very good at working at things, they're good at designing their own products really well, but they're not good at,
yeah, they design an amazing product.
But once it gets on the field, they're not good at working it. Yeah. In my opinion.
They expect others to do that work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And they, and so I think that's the challenge.
Yeah. One of the great quotes, again, from that Wall Street Journal article is Tim Cook talking about the Vision Pro. It's not that people are wrong and we're right. He says, we have enough faith that if we love the product, there will be enough other people out there that love it too. And I do believe
Jason, are we going to hear on the 31st on the quarterly results, we're going to hear anything about Vision Pro?
They were real quiet about it last time. I think that if you hear anything about it, it won't be anything tangible in terms of sales. It'll be an anecdote like a surgeon using it in a surgery, or how one of the things that really gets the analysts really excited is when they talk about things like, oh, we have a deal with a Fortune 200 company that's deploying Vision Pros in their corporate environment to do training about something. Like, they will tell a story about it.
The absence of those stories is telling too, though, right?
Yes. I mean, well, yeah, because I know what they want is some amazing killer app that they can mention. And that story that kicked off this conversation is not wrong, that there isn't one. And I don't think it's surprising that there aren't very many apps being developed right now, because it's such a small platform. And I think what you notice in that Wall Street Journal article with Tim Cook is he acknowledges that the Vision Pro is a first step that's not for regular people and is for early adopters and is just like their first step in the process. And like, that's the truth of it. It is not like any other Apple product. It's not meant for the masses. I keep saying on this show, like, there's nobody right now I would recommend a Vision Pro to, right? Like, it doesn't make sense for anybody. Now, I would love for Apple or one of Apple's developer partners to find a reason, but they haven't yet. And that's okay, because again, I think that they're in this for the long haul. But that's why we get all grumpy, Alex and I especially get grumpy about the content part of it, because what little content there is, you could see that there's probably something there, but how long is it going to take for that to come to fruition? Because if they could do a Broadway series of immersive that you had to subscribe to, or an NBA thing that you could subscribe to.
Yeah, if they did Broadway, I would buy a Vision Pro.
Then
for
I
that.
would say, and somebody in the Discord was saying, yeah, but is $2,000 really more affordable? Well, it's more affordable than $3,500 for sure.
Not low enough.
And if you've got a huge NBA fan and you've got an NBA product or a Broadway product, it's a lot easier to convince somebody to buy a $2,000 headset than a $3,500 headset. It's not ideal, but it's a little bit better, but we're waiting for that thing.
I just feel bad for people who spent $3,500 on it, thinking it was a finished real product. I mean, I spent more than that on the Mac, the first Mac, but it was a real. I mean, and there were problems with it.
Yeah,
but it was something.
And more than that. Even with the first Mac, the first iPhone, a whole bunch of these first, there were things you could do with that. There are apps you could realize on that platform that you could not realize on any other platform
it came with
at
Mac
the time.
Write, Mac Paint, Mac Draw.
Yeah,
and they were amazing.
I'm sorry, just to wrap up the thought.
And flying toasters.
Yes, of course. But the disappointment with the Vision Pro is that all people are creating are 2D apps that can easily be done on any other platform. You basically have a virtual screen connected to a pointy device and a keyboard. So that's why it's just not getting there yet.
Yeah, I do think to your point that understanding the 3D space and really understanding what to do with it and how you can interact with it, I think is something that a lot of developers don't know and aren't thinking that way. And I think that I do think, to Apple's credit, the fact that they collaborated with Blackmagic to get a camera that can generate content that is at the spec, that is a spec that's higher than the Quest. I mean, that's what Apple needed, was a camera that can generate content that you can't watch on the Quest at the same level as you can watch it there. And if that actually happens, I think it changes. Because I think looking at Submerged, there was a lot of things about Submerged that I didn't particularly like, but there was an enormous chunk of it that was like, if I start seeing a whole bunch of movies like this, the 2D screen is going to start looking old really fast. Like it was like if they start putting out real shows, and even I think the place that Apple could be doing this, and is something like Silo feels like the perfect place to do this. Right. It's tightly enclosed, and if you just did scenes, just one scene in one of the apartments or one scene somewhere else where you just get to go watch the Silo scenes there to see what this might look like reimagined in that environment. I think that you'd end up with a lot of people being interested. I don't know if it'll sell more headsets yet, but it starts to have people really get the possibility of what's there. And it does feel like Apple's got a ton of powder still dry. They're showing us all these little snippets of things. I mean, obviously they shot a lot more to get to those snippets. And the question is was a lot of it just not work? Did it not work? Or did they, are they saving it for something? We don't know exactly what they're saving it for.
And that's your Vision Pro segment. Play the outro.
Now you see, now you know, we're done talking the Vision Pro.
John Ashley, if you want to send me those cuts, I could put them on my Stream Deck, and then you won't have to listen to the segment.
No, I like listening to this segment.
Oh, okay.
Just when you roll right into it quickly, it's like, whoa.
Well, give me the open, then that way I'll know. I know where I'm going. And incidentally, I didn't give you a plug, Jason Snell, but Jason's review of the Mac Mini is available now at sixcolors.com. I'm sorry, iPad. God, I keep saying
Check it out. I know that's why they didn't announce them the same day, right? It's too confusing.
It's confusing.
So
a familiar friend
today.
Gets an AI refresh.
Yeah, that's my nice way of saying there's nothing new except Apple Intelligence support.
Yeah. And we can see you're reading the Nova incident. Are you enjoying it?
I've already read it actually, but I was looking at like what books do I have on iBooks that are synced to iCloud that I can just open for this photo.
There was the one.
I'll plug Dan Morin's novel. Why not?
Good old Dan Morin. Available on Apple Books.
It is.
Let's take a little time out and your picks of the week, if you will. Coming up next as you're listening and watching the MacBreak Weekly, a special thank you to our Club Twit members who made this show possible. Made all of our shows possible, made the move to the attic possible. You know, we're tightening the belt as best we can. You see so many podcasts going out of business, podcast networks. How much did Spotify pay for Gimlet? $100 million, I think, and they just shut it down because it's getting harder and harder to do a podcast out here. But we have a secret recipe at Twit. We have a secret savior, and that's you. Our community, I think we have the best darn community out there. And you've shown it with your support, Club Twit members. Now I'd like to invite more of you to join. Now let me explain what you get. It's $7 a month. Mostly you get the good feeling that you're supporting what we do, because that really does help us pay the bills. It doesn't go into my pocket. It goes to pay the bills. But you also get ad-free versions of all the shows. We don't need to show you ads. You're paying for the ad-free version. You get access to the Club Twit Discord, which is a great hang, a wonderful place to be, full of animated GIFs and smart people and just a good time. You also get special events that we don't put out in public. For instance, if you missed our Coffee Clatch with Mark Prince, the coffee geek, and Sarah Dooley, the Queen of Beans, that was last Friday. We do have it on the Twit Plus feed. This Friday, we're going to do Stacy's Book Club with Stacy Higginbotham. The book will be Adrian Tchaikovsky's Service Model, which Jason says he really liked. And
favorite book of the year. Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. We'll be talking about, you should join us, Jason. We'll be talking about it Friday, 2 p.m. That'll be streamed everywhere. Thanks to Club Twit, we were able to stream to YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, LinkedIn, Kick, TikTok, X.com, and of course to Discord, 8 different places. But that's only when we're live, and then after the fact, it gets behind the paywall and goes into the Twit Plus feed. So if you miss it, you gotta go there. So please join the club. It's a great party. It's a great time, and it supports what we do. And those flying toasters, those don't come free, man.
Keep them flying.
Keep them flying. Keep our toasters flying. There's our slogan. twit.tv/Club Twitter. Scan the QR code in the upper left of your screen. And we thank you all so much for supporting our shows. By the way, Anthony Nielsen says, who owns a Vision Pro? If the TikTok live stream count is any indication of Vision Pro interest, the room cleared out as soon as we started talking Vision Pro. You get the feedback right away from the TikTok algorithm. It is not shy. It lets you know. Andy Anako, pick of the week.
I mentioned earlier that I'd kind of stopped wearing smartwatches at the start of the summer. Part of it was that, oh, wow, I can buy a cheap plastic $20 Casio. It's red and it's cheerful. And
you always know where the Tide is.
This is the basic $20.
Okay.
So, believe me, all summer long, I've been looking at other cheap Casios, and I decided, okay, change of seasons, time for a new watch, something a little bit less festive. So I got the Casio Tide Graph, the 1700.
This is so cute.
H.
I saw your post on this. I love it.
And it's so
10-year battery, kids.
For A, 10-year battery, B, waterproof to 50 meters or something like that. But I was so curious to see, it says that, it has an indicator here for what's the current phase of the moon and what is the tide right now. And I'm like, how the hell does a $30 smartwatch figure that out? And I'll be damned. It's hard to set up, but once you set it up, it's absolutely accurate. The answer to the question is that it is simple math, but it needs a whole bunch of data for your location that would come out of an almanac. You need to know your latitude and your longitude. You need to calculate the lunitidal interval, which also means you need to know the moon transit, what time is the next high tide.
Louise.
It's not that hard. It's just that it took me 3 or 4 tries. And there's also
you can still buy the watch, but where do you get old Poor Farmer's Almanac. Where do you get that?
Well, okay, well, the manual, and again, we're talking about the manual that's the size of a book of matches and has 4 languages in it. It has rough tables you can consult.
Oh, okay.
But there's actually an online calculator for lunar tidal interview.
Oh, nice.
And after screwing it up a couple of times because I didn't really read the instructions very, very well, Google is your friend. After a couple of Google searches, you will get the data you need. I have to admit, though, that it wasn't until like the recent full moon a couple of days ago that I was absolutely certain that after 2 weeks, yes, this is correct. This is absolutely correct.
It's full.
And it's a hell of a thing. I mean, it's fun to know. Like, I do live near the ocean, so high tide is kind of an object of interest.
Yeah.
And sometimes I like to take pictures, so it's nice to just curiously know what phase of the moon is going on. But mostly it's for the reason why every watch, including Apple watches, but mostly mechanical watches, have lots of complications. It's just fun to look at your watch and get the time, but also see all kinds of other stuff on it. Like
what's the tide right now? Where are we right now?
Tide is coming in. High tide will be soon. There's like it's like a dial with 6 segments to it. So when the black bar is at the top, it's high tide. When the black bar is at the bottom, it's low tide. And in between, you can see if the tide is coming in or coming out.
You know, it's cool. It's 1/100th the cost of a Vision Pro. You could buy 100 of them. Or is it 1,000 of them?
And you can go swimming with it.
1,000 of them. You could
more than once. Yeah, I've become like a super fan. My Amazon wish list has like at least 10 different like Casio watches from $15 to like $50 on it, and I'm sure that it's the rule of threes. Once I do this the 3rd time, once I decide, it's winter, I need to buy a new Casio watch, that's going to have to be a tradition that I buy a new cheap plastic Casio
do those
watch.
Screws are they actually screws, or is it just
No, they're just
dressing?
molded in. That's the only part of it I don't like. It's styled like a G-Shock watch. It's not a G-Shock, but it's styled like one.
Right.
The great thing about Casio making the same styles, this is by the way, a brand new model. They just came out with this in 2024. However, because they make these in the millions and cajillions, they are really hip on trying to make things really efficient. So if I were to unscrew the back of this and take out the module, I could put the same module, the Moontide module, into a whole bunch of other different Casio watches. So if I wanted this to be less of a like fake screws, something more streamlined, I could buy a $22 other model watch in this VEG line and just switch the modules. Or I could go to AliExpress, pay $23 and get a stainless steel case that this module will fit in, and all the buttons will work and stuff like that. So yeah, it's quite a thing, and it's a lot of fun. But it's also fun knowing that, like, even if I'm not buying a really expensive smartwatch, for $250, I can buy 10 to 15 of these watches and just have one for every mood, every day, every sense of life.
I'm so glad they still make these. They're just so cool. They're so cool.
Even and by the way, it's not a retro thing either. It's not like, hey, we've got this. Remember the 80s? Now we bring the 80s back. But it's just they just never stopped making them. As a matter of fact, the cheapest Casio watch is like $14, $15. You'll recognize it if you see it. Apparently, like, there's if you wear one, the TSA, there's a really heightened chance will pull you over for special inspection, because it is known as like the favorite watch of like terrorists, because it's so cheap they can hand them out.
Oh my God!
But the other positive thing, and I'm probably
that's really a selling point. The terrorist's favorite watch.
But I'll give you another selling point. I haven't bought this yet, but I'm trying to like think about spending $60 or $70 for just a toy, interesting thing to play with. There is an engineer who has built an alternative board for that $16 watch that actually makes it into a smartwatch.
Wow.
That will give it like that. You can actually program it. It'll have like you can have a step counter. It'll have a temperature sensor. It'll have a whole bunch of other stuff. And of course, it uses the same LCD display, so it's kind of funky that way. But I love the idea of having what looks like a cheap throwaway, like claw machine $16 watch that is actually a very, very capable, weird thing. It's like having a 007 watch that can shoot laser beams, but only it'll just like tell you the temperature.
The Casio Tidegraph WS1700H, $35 at your local Casio dealer or Amazon, as the case may be. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So I I was traveling and talking to CJ Covell is someone one of our hosts on Office Hours, and talking about the fact that I was watching in the middle of Horizon or whatever, watching it on the plane, and my Apple Vision died, and I was like, I'm gonna have to find another battery because all the batteries I have are kind of worn out. And so he suggested, and I am hooked on these Anker power bank, and this is the 2700 mAh. So this is what it looks like here. Hold on,
this is funny because
is this the one
we
you
got
have?
asked this question on Ask the Tech Guys, and I looked around, I searched around because somebody wanted battery to power their Vision Pro, and I found the same thing. Look at that. It is the coolest thing ever.
It is so.
I have yet to use it to charge anything.
So
but I have it.
I have it, and
so
I've charged a couple of things without charging right now. I was just testing.
It shows you what's going on.
It shows you what each port is doing. It shows you how much time, if you're drawing, how much is going to be left. When you're charging, it shows you how much time it's going to take for it to charge, how many watts it's pulling, through these through the here. It's capable of putting out a fair amount of power. So if you want to do something with your computer or Apple Vision Pro or anything else that you might be powering your phone, it's gonna be able to handle it. It's a lot of battery that's there. It's got like a little charger that I didn't buy the whole kit. You can have a little thing that you can set this down on and it'll automatically charge. And I didn't go down that far. So, but this is going to be the new thing that goes into my into my backpack so that I can that I carry as kind of my standard.
It's not too heavy.
Standard thing,
It's a little big, but it's not too heavy.
I'm already. It's a 99 watt. Whatever the 99 watt hour limit. It's at the top of the limit.
It's right at the limit.
What you can put on your
take
on the plane, and so it can't get any bigger than that. And so I'm used to weight on my backpack. I really did need one. I don't know. I felt like I needed one as I look like I'm going to be doing more flying over the fall. I'm pretty excited about having something that I can continue to watch my Apple Vision Pro.
It's perfect for Vision Pro. You get across the ocean with that.
The ability to not. I recently bought like the first power bank that is capable of like charging and powering my MacBook like as I go, and the ability to no longer have to care necessarily about the charge state of my MacBook when I leave for the day for going out. That's worth $100 to me.
Yeah. Power delivery PD 3.1. So at 250 watts, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really incredible.
That means being able to charge your MacBook and your iPhone at the same time at high speed.
And I like it because there's a little dock to charge at home. So you just put it on, it has a little pogo pins. You just put it on the dock, and it'll just charge and stay ready to go. Also Bluetooth capable.
Yeah, and I think that the to me, being able to know what everything's drawing and how much time I have left and all those other things, having all that data on the front is very useful. Yeah. So it's good.
It also has temperature for some reason. It's 75 degrees right now.
I know they were like, "Hey, do you want a temperature gauge on this?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure, why not?
Sure."
No, it's like the chip we're using has a temperature sensor. Should we put that? And it's like,
on the display?
I mean, if we buy the chip, why not?
On the screen, more stuff on the screen always.
It works with the Anker Smart app.
Sliders, more stuff on the screen, please.
Jason Snell, your pick of the week, my friend.
Yeah, it's kind of a twofer. I realized with a shock that we haven't recommended DaVinci Resolve since Renee recommended it and Andy in 2020.
Wow.
And so I'm going to mention, so DaVinci Resolve is from Blackmagic, and they have a pro version that you can pay for, but they have a free version. And this is nonlinear video editing software and in color correction and a whole bunch of other things. It is free. It also works on the iPad and is free. So if you end up so here's the story. We do a video version of my other podcast, Upgrade with Mike Hurley, and my good friend Chip Sutterth is our video editor. And apparently our show yesterday was so great that it blew out the logic board on his MacBook Pro.
Oh boy.
And so I needed to do a version of the show today. I didn't need to. I wanted to not have the show just disappear for a week on YouTube. And I use a plugin that I'm going to mention in a minute to do this, and that Chip uses too. And I thought, do I really want to get a Premiere trial or something? Because this plugin doesn't work with Final Cut, which is what I prefer. I hope that they will add that. And then I thought, oh, but I can also they have a beta version that works with DaVinci Resolve, and it's free. Again, I say to you, it is free. So if you want to do some video editing and would like something that is up from iMovie, and you aren't going to pay for Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro, probably, maybe, if you don't know about it, try DaVinci Resolve, because again, I can't say this enough. It's free, okay? It's real, legitimate professional video editing software for free. So that's part.
I will also say that even though he can afford to use any solution in the world, Salt Hank uses DaVinci for all of his videos.
The other thing about it is that Blackmagic has so many engineers. Like,
yes,
Resolve is evolving much faster than everything else around it. Like, it's not. There's like I mean, it's multiples of everybody else's engineers. So this is something that Blackmagic is. It's not like a side project or something that we're kind of keeping in the we'll just keep it moving forward. There are just incredible amounts of new features every single round, and it's a core piece of the technology that they're building. And so I think that is a real. I use Resolve about half the time. So if I'm in a rush, I can open up Final Cut because I can just knock it out, blah 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 blah. But if I need to do, precision edit, precision color, precision audio, those types of things, I quickly I don't consider doing anything other than Resolve, for those things. And so the fact that it's the high end solution, and oh, by the way, there is a free version. Pretty impressive, and the studio version, by the way, comes with every Blackmagic camera. You can buy the editing thing that makes it faster, and it comes with the full version. So you buy the controller for $300, and the software comes with it. And so unlike like Apple, they don't. If you buy the studio version, if you decide that the extra tools are necessary, they've never charged for an upgrade. So it's just like, oh, now you have the studio version and you can have that for all. And every time we upgrade it, you'll be able to use that as well. And so I feel like it's very hard to compete with that level of, we're going to spend way more money than everyone else developing the software. We're going to give away a free version, and we're going to, and never charge you for an upgrade. It feels like
pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's a really amazing piece of software. And so I just second and third and fourth.
Yeah.
Jason's
so
recommendation.
That's part the first part. So the second is this amazing plugin that I found originally just for Premiere, which is not my first choice of video editing software, but you can, and if you love it, great. I don't love it, but I know how to use it. It's fine. And now they have a beta version that works with DaVinci Resolve. Again, please, I hope they will eventually do a Final Cut version, because I would really love that. It's very clever. It's called AutoPod. I may have mentioned it here before, but just to say it again, it's a subscription plugin. And here's what it does. For the Upgrade podcast, for example, we don't have a director who's directing the show live. We don't even see each other's video, but we do record video. And then in your nonlinear editor, I pop my video, Mike's video, my audio, Mike's audio, and go into AutoPod and say, okay, track 1 is Mike's video, track 2 is my video, track 3 is my audio, track 4 is Mike's audio, go. And then it uses an AI algorithm to determine, based on when we're talking, but not like if one of us blurts out, it briefly cuts to the other one. It builds a series of shots. And if you've got a third shot that's both of you, it will actually build a one shot and then another. It'll switch between the one shots, and then it'll go to the two shot and back to the one shot. And it allows me to generate from source video, a version of the show that is basically keyed off of our voices, but is directed essentially to cut back and forth in minutes, in a minute or two, and I can export that to YouTube. And it's the difference between us being able to do a YouTube version of our podcast and not doing it. And that's why they built it, AutoPod. It's literally, could you make a video version of a podcast without taking like the Zoom feed or having, like we do here, an actual human being directing it? And for a lot of podcasts, those aren't options. So AutoPod is kind of mind-blowing, and if you use Premiere or now DaVinci Resolve, really worth checking out if you're in that situation, or you wish to be, or you thought, as we did, that we were never going to be able to do it because there's no way we were going to be able to pay somebody to sit down for hours to go through and cut the show. So yeah, I highly recommend both of them, and glad that Alex has given 8 extra thumbs up to DaVinci Resolve.
Don't worry, John Ashley. I have absolutely no intention of replacing you. So how much does Autopod cost? No, don't worry, John.
What you don't get is, the lower thirds and
you
playing
couldn't
the
get the Vision Pro thing hitting. No,
it's not
the positive
intelligent
energy
like that, but it's a pretty good simulation if you cannot afford to have another human brain running your video board while you're recording your podcast, which a lot of people can't.
No, and John does a whole lot more than just sit there, push buttons, I think. I'm not sure. Probably. In all likelihood.
We love you, man.
I like to tease him. John Ashley, our producer, our technical director.
Yes. They wrote a whole software package to try to emulate one tiny part of what John does.
Exactly.
And it doesn't really, it just does a good enough job, but not like having. So that's my other pick. My third pick is John Ashley.
John Ashley. I picked John Ashley. He's been putting up little clips
I'm good on being picked on. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. Poor John. I pick on him mercilessly. He is good at doing the TikTok clips, and we've actually been getting some traction on some of our TikTok clips. I think the Mac Mini clip that you put up on TikTok, it got like 30, 40,000 likes or something. Is that right?
Something like that, I think.
The one that got the most likes, more than 100,000, was a thing we did about getting certs in Microsoft Windows. So I don't know what's going on with TikTok. I don't know. I don't understand.
There's a lot of verticals. You think that it's all like people dancing, and then you get into once the algorithm gets a hold of you, it starts to go, well, there's just a whole communities that don't, like every time I start with a new account in TikTok, like if I grab a new phone and I don't want to use my old account, you're like, how could anyone watch this? This is the most horrible thing I've ever seen. And then within like an hour, it's like locked into whatever you're.
Yeah, its algorithm is really quite brilliant. Mm-hmm. I'm just looking. This is our TikTok. It's TwitTok. Get it? Clever. TWITTOK. Very clever. And if I can sort this by the top, right? The most viewed, 50,000 that's from Twit. Is this from Twit?
Click on the TwitTok at the very top. I think you have to click on us first.
This is somebody else. No wonder she got so many views. Okay. Something went wrong. This always happens. I don't know why. And then how do I sort it by the, here, let's see, the popular. These are the most popular ones. There's Richard Campbell, 230,000. Are those likes or views? 230,000 on the certs. And then this is the mini one, 33,000. What's this one? Oh, that's that's us. That's this right now. That's us live on TwitTok. So, yeah, that's pretty good, 230,000. It's not Salt Hank numbers, but I'll take it. And so, John Ashley, you help do those, right? You do the ours?
We actually use
AI.
Opus?
You use Opus, yeah.
Yeah, Opus is the key. Mm-hmm. It just, you throw it in and it comes back with 40 options and you're like, and ranks them and you go.
Well,
you can kind of tell it's Opus because it does the captions, right?
Well, and then I also actually take the time to like kind of go through it because it doesn't always do a perfect job. So I always have to like try to actually take time and polish it. Like, why is it talking about this? I take that out, that I actually put another section in. So,
but I have noticed that when I wear funny hats, we get a little bit more traction. So I'm just testing that out right now, just to see if that works on TikTok. Thank you, John Ashley. Thank you, Jason Snell. Thank you, Andy Anako. Thank you, Alex Lindsay. You'll find Alex at officehours.global every day of the week talking about production and all sorts of stuff.
I did do the because if you believe that the tomorrow is better than today, then also means.
Oh, you got a video? You got a picture that goes with it?
I got a couple. So we had.
We should send this to the Wall Street Journal.
Yeah, we had this little train.
That's good.
With someone standing on top of it. I don't know exactly what's going on.
He believes that tomorrow is better than today.
And then we have, let's see here, hold on, I got a couple of them here. So we have another train. I had another train that just made up there. I had.
Did you say something about trains in your prompt?
No, I just thought.
It's
and then
pulling. It looks like it's pulling a building. Oh, I like that.
I got the big Pikachu. that's there. I think that one's a pretty good one. And then it comes up with
you
things
must be using. What are you using? Because Pikachu is a trademark of the Nintendo Corporation, which is notoriously litigious.
I just put the quote in and gave it, but I've set it to like 100%, like go crazy. And so
don't think about guardrails.
Yeah, don't worry about anything. So you got a Pikachu there. Then I got this. I was like, okay. Like, I don't know what that means.
Tomorrow is better than today, but today was better than yesterday.
Today might be the last day. And so anyways, I thought that was fun. Then we have, the
little angel.
Yeah, look at that. And then
great bouquet, by the way, on that one.
This one's starting low. Like tomorrow might be better. Today is,
the sun will come out tomorrow,
but not
couldn't get much.
So anyway, those are your little choices. And a quick reminder, by the way, is we did do the Sonic Sunshine Benefit.com.
How did that go?
It went really well. Just such a great collection, folks.
But you can see it, right?
Yeah, Sonic Sunshine. If you go to sonicsunshinebenefit.com, please donate to the fine folks that are there. You can watch the stream there. There's some live performances. There's a lot of people who literally phoned it in, like recorded it with their phone, and some great performances there. But there's also some live performances, including Bare Naked Ladies and as well as Toad the Wet Sprocket. And so there's live from Columbia University of South Carolina.
South Carolina.
And it was the
other USC.
What they say is the original USC. So check that out. We had a great time, and just a great bunch of artists to work with. It was really fun.
Very nice. Really cool. SonicSunshineBenefit.com to donate. They need the money, and you get a great concert. And Alex Lindsay, you're the best. OfficeHours.global. And don't forget the show he does with Michael Krasny, GrayMatter.show.
We got Ron Elving on to talk about the election this Friday.
Oh, boy. I don't know. I am so anxious that I don't think I can take any more input. I'm just going,
It's going to be interesting.
Wake me in 2 weeks. Everybody should vote, though. I voted. Look at that.
I already voted.
I voted. I got that's nice. They give you the badge so you can, I'm going to save it and put it on later just to remind people on the 5th. Andy Anako, GBH is calling.
Thursday, 12:30 Eastern Time. Go to wgbhnews.org to listen to it live or later.
Very nice. It's great to have you in your beautiful library. It looks like a nice day. Go outside and enjoy the tide.
It is quite lovely. It's unseasonably warm, but not so warm as to make you not want to be outside.
Perfetto. That's what you're looking for. Mr. Jason Snell is at sixcolors.com. Read his review of the iPad mini there and all sorts of other great stuff. He also does a million podcasts. They're all listed at sixcolors.com/Jason.
Yes, indeed.
Plug something.
Yeah, go read my iPad mini review. I managed to get like 2,000 words about a product that basically didn't change. Marvel at it.
Had I read it, I wouldn't have bought a brand new case for $70. So right there, you could have saved me some big bucks.
News you can use.
Well, anyway, that's, Apple gets most of my income. That's the way it is. Thank you for joining us. We do MacBreak Weekly every Tuesday, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1800 UTC. You can watch us live on those 8 channels now, including TikTok, YouTube, Twitch. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show are available at our website, twit.tv/MBW. When you get there, you'll also see a link to the YouTube channel that's dedicated to MacBreak Weekly. That's a good way to share clips if you saw something that you wanted to tell a friend about or whatever, and it helps us promote it. By the way, another way you can help promote what we do, and we really appreciate it, if you're a club member, you get a free month when you entice somebody else to join the club. The referral program is there at twit.tv/clubtwit. You know what? You refer 12 friends, you don't pay for a year. I think that's a pretty good deal. We also have, of course, because we're a podcast, we have a feed, which means you can use any podcast player of your choice and subscribe either to the audio or the video versions of MacBreak Weekly, available shortly after the show concludes on a Tuesday. John Ashley, we're starting to put together the best ofs for the end of the year. I can't believe we're already doing that. End of the year is here.
Oh, wait, yeah. We've been working on it.
Yeah. Twit.tv/best of. If there's a moment from MacBreak Weekly 2024 that you thought really, hit home, nominate it, twit.tv/best of. It helps John Ashley and the rest of the producers get the best ofs together for the holiday season this year. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Now, I'm sad to say it's time to get back to work because break time is over. Bye-bye.